And we're on. Hey, folks, happy Wednesday. I don't ever know what day it is when I'm coming on here. I just be on here talking. But sorry, I was trying to get the sound together because, sometimes the sound likes to do its sound thing and I needed it to be right so we don't run into any problems. By the way, the weather outside is doing a lot. So let us pray that the storm does not mess up my live or the connection. All right. Let me get in a few hellos and then we're going to jump right into everything. Hello, Fish Cakes said I'm going to see Ari Lennox tonight. Oh, that'd be a fun show. I'll watch the playback when I get in. Much love, Calvin. Calvin, are you going to comment on Drewski's latest skit with the Black British actors that are taking Black American roles? I haven't seen the whole skit yet. I got to go back and kind of watch it. The last Drewski one I really saw was like the Erica Kirk one. I kind of been all over the place, but I will happily go back and watch. But I do know that has been a conversation about the competition that exists within film when it comes to Black roles and who's playing who. So maybe we can revisit that on another video. Somebody said, Ryan said, glad to see you so soon. Yeah, listen, y'all know I don't normally do an every week kind of live, but I figured we could try. There's so much going on, and I was like, let me just get it out now while it's there. Andre Sante, what's up? Exactly. At this point, we're going to have to do 2 live streams a week to keep up with the foolery. Exactly. Too much going on, man. Way too much. Let me close out some of these extra tabs that don't need to be open. Okay. Somebody said they thought they overslept and missed it. No, I was late by 5 minutes. My bad. Somebody said, got that macaroni and cheese. Okay. Ready with the ribs. Not eating until you start. All right. Okay. You're going to be sleeping about 30 minutes because that's that heavy food. I'm one of those people. I'm that person that falls asleep right after I eat. Even at work, one of my coworkers always laughs because she knows after lunch, my eyelids get so heavy. And then she's kind of like a storyteller. Like she's always, we'll have these conversations and stuff, and she'll be telling me a story. But she has these very expansive stories that in the same way that I'm long-winded, she can be too. So I'd be, yeah. If I don't like get up and go take a walk after lunch for a minute, I am down bad. What up, Alan? Congratulations, by the way. Alan had his commencement for getting his master's, I think, on Monday from Johns Hopkins. So shout out to you. Man. We love to see it. What up, Belize gal? Look at you being all on time. Start here. I didn't even add this into the story, but I need to. Dang it. I am so sorry. Yes, Calvin, my fellow Muslims were affected by the shooting in San Diego, which I'll just go ahead and start shaking the table now. See, to me, that is the direct result of so much of the anti-Muslim, anti-everything rhetoric that core demographic of people continue to spew out every day, all the time, where they want everybody to be the bad guy except for themselves because they don't like looking in the mirror. So they have to find something with everyone else. Because what I saw in that story, when I saw that the shooters were like 17 and 19, how in life do you have so much rage for another group of people that at 17, you're willing to go and take somebody else's and throw yours away? All because somebody else told you something about a group of people you know nothing about, right? And for people who think they're exempt, understand there's a huge Black Muslim population as well. And it has nothing to do with whether or not you're in a group that's targeted, but it's more so the fact that no group of people should have to feel that they have to walk on eggshells or keep, an eye out with regard to somebody either targeting them or attacking them for existing. This kind of goes back to the same nonsense that exists with the whole great replacement theory that white folks will not shut up about, and they keep using that as a justification to go and kill everybody, which is why we got the Buffalo Market shooting. I'm over it. I hate that I did not add that in my list of topics, but I want to at least make sure I acknowledge that. But no, that's ridiculous and it's crazy. And I enjoyed that clip of the press conference where the mayor was getting ready to go up there and say their 2 cents, and that person in the crowd was like, actually, this is a result of the rhetoric that you put out and all the different things that you stated and all the things that you said and done where you've targeted these different groups of people and tried to otherize them and make it seem like whatever's wrong in the world is because of them. And we're already in a space and in a society where, because things are not good for everybody, people are struggling financially, a lot of folks always need somebody to blame. And we know that a lot of times, if it ain't the Black folks they're going after, the next group in line has always been the Muslim community, right? Ridiculous. So condolences to those who have been affected, but white folks, get it together, please. What are y'all doing? Y'all bother everybody. Everybody be minding their business, and then here y'all come like clockwork. My God, make it make sense. We're supposed to start off happy. I done got pissed off already. Let me see. Oh, I'm glad I said your name right, Andre. I thought I was saying it wrong. Andrea Sante. I didn't know if I was saying it right. I felt like I was guessing every time. What up, Tyler? Let's see. I gotta get started, y'all. Astro Talk TV. What's up? What up? What up? Exactly. There. All right. What up? What up? What up? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So a few things. Like I said, the book club is kind of on pause until we get further into June. But if you want to start putting in suggestions or ideas, you can either hit me on my website, calvinmichaels.com, or you can email me, calvinbmichaels@gmail.com. Or if you follow me on social media, you can start dropping in your recommendations. About sometime in early June, which is literally like next week or the week after, I'm going to go ahead and put in the selections for you guys to vote on. And then we'll start, I want to say, that third or fourth week of June. I forgot what the countdown says on my website. So, and if you follow the website enough, you know that countdown, the ticker be changing. All right. That being said, we know primaries have been going on. We've seen some of the election results in places like Kentucky and Georgia and everything else like that. I just want to make sure that people are also in the know that we're still locked right into the middle of all this. And there are tons of other primaries that are coming up. So make sure, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So make sure you are in the know about what is coming down the pipeline. Now you can go to usvotefoundation.org and it will give you the full insight on every primary and election that is coming up. But just to give you a heads up, because I've already scoured through this page, June 2nd, for those of you who live in California, Iowa, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota, your primaries are on June 2nd. Go and make sure that you are registered. And even if you think you're registered, go and double check because you know they got some foolery going on. June 9th, if you live in Maine, Nevada, North Dakota, or South Carolina, go ahead and make sure you're registered. Your primaries are on June 9th. Oklahoma, you guys are June 16th. New York and Utah, you all are June 23rd. And Colorado, you all are June 30th. We'll get to July when it gets closer to that time. So double check and really make sure that you are locked in and you understand what's happening. What I want to say about primaries, because I think sometimes people don't quite understand how they work. So just be patient while I quickly explain this for those who are still learning. Normally, like let's say we're looking at the governor's race in your state. By the time you get to the main gubernatorial race, there's normally somebody represented from the Democratic Party. There's somebody represented from the Republican Party. Maybe you have somebody from the Green Party or Independent or Working Families Party, all these different parties, right? But the primary just means that, okay, you got 10 Democrats that are all trying to run for governor, but only one can run as the official Democratic governor. Same thing for Republicans. So they have their primaries or their caucuses, and that's just when you vote within the party. So if you're having a Democratic primary or Republican primary, in that primary, every candidate that you're voting for is from the same party. You're just picking the person that you feel is best to represent that party that you belong to. That's what the primaries are. So by the time we get to the actual gubernatorial race, you're only going to have the winner of that Democratic primary and that Republican primary, plus whoever else is on the ballot, competing. And sometimes somebody may lose the Democratic primary or the Republican primary, and then they may run as an independent because they still want to go in the race. So if we remember, even like the New York mayoral race, right? Cuomo lost that Democratic nomination to Mandami, so he ran as an independent. So I say all that to say, when it comes to the primaries, one of the conversations I keep seeing a lot of times is, okay, well, the candidates suck or it's lesser of two evils, blah, 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 blah. The primaries are your moment to really get in with an actual candidate that might be closer to what it is that you're looking for that isn't quite bought out yet. I will also say, and I think I've heard other people say this as well, a lot of times the really, really, really great candidates, the ones that we actually like, the ones who are really about something, who really have a vision and they're trying to make things great for everybody, and they've taken the time to talk to all the different communities, and they've taken the time to figure out what the needs are. A lot of times those candidates don't win their primaries, usually because they don't have enough money to send out the mailers or to just have ad time and radio space and TV time. And a lot of times they get outbought by the candidate that's normally backed by the party sometimes, because even these parties are, they pick and choose who they want to really get behind. And, sometimes there will be a candidate that is able to push through the cracks and the will of the people takes precedent. and then that party gets behind them. And so if you really want to shake that table, or there's really people that you really like, lock in before the primary and know who's already there, right? Don't wait until the primary has taken place and now you only got one or two choices and now you're mad because you waited until the very end to start paying attention. This is the time to lock in now. And I also will say, like I've been saying for years, this is the time too to start even looking into the future beyond 2026 and beyond 2028 and 2030 and 2032. When we're talking about that idea of building these coalitions, or that idea of maybe there's a candidate that right now, if they were to run, they wouldn't lose because nobody knows, or they wouldn't win because nobody knows who they are. But let's say if you're somebody or you know somebody and maybe they want to run for something in 2030, this is the perfect time now to start building that rapport with the community. It gives you a good 4-year window to be known, to be seen, to be at the community events. I look at he's running for the House for DC. He initially ran for mayor a few times in DC. What is his name? Is it Ryan? I want to say Ryan White. Hold on. I want to just make sure I got the name right here. DC House campaign. What is that man's name? Somebody in my chat know who I'm talking about. This person is running for Robert White. I don't know why I'm saying Ryan. Actually, I think Ryan White is the kid. Remember that kid in the late 80s who he ended up contracting AIDS through the blood transfusion, and then Americans were terrible and kicked him out of the school and made him public enemy #1, and then he died with a whole lot of bad media press and all that stuff. I think that's who was in the name. But back to my main point. Robert White. So I know Robert White has had a few moments where like he's run for mayor in DC, at least I think one time. And now he's running to fill Eleanor Holmes' seat for the House. But one of the things that I've seen him doing specifically in DC, even before he ever had any thought of doing anything with trying to get into Congress, maybe for the last year or two, he's been just holding meetings at different people's homes, like residents, where a resident may get 30 friends, just 30 people, 30 friends together, get some little hors d'oeuvres, little angel food cake, maybe a deviled egg and some little glasses of ginger ale. And, he answers questions or talks about what his vision is. And then people share their ideas like, hey, well, if you're thinking about doing this could be a good idea, or that could be a good idea. And those may sound like small steps, but them 30 people in that living room talk, and they talk to other people who talk to other people. And you keep doing all these different things, and then you gradually climb to bigger platforms and so on and so forth. The people know who you are. So I think the time to lock in and get active can't be when it's time to vote. You know what I mean? I think we keep sitting in a cycle where people wait until it's almost do or die. And then all of a sudden they want to have a long list of demands and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, where were you for all the other times, right? So that's all I'll say with that. And so, get behind those who are doing the work and people who you think maybe you could try and convince folks, hey, I think you're really good at this. It might not be running for mayor. It might just be, not just, but it may be you're running for the school board. You're running for county supervisor. You're running to be delegate. There's so many elected positions. Like we said, there's thousands of elected positions in this country. They're not all at the federal level or at the state level. A lot of it is at the local level. And like I said on the last live, right? So many of us learn just how intricate the election cycle is when it comes to just electing a president, with the amount of steps that go from the federal level down to the state levels, to the point where you get into the districts and the precincts, and there's these random people you've never heard of who have to certify results. So there's so many roles and pieces of the puzzle that are there. And so, like I said, the primaries, get familiar with who's running it. At this point, especially, again, for who are my people that are literally like in a week? Again, California, Iowa, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, South Dakota, y'all are in 2 weeks, all right? Get familiar with who's in those primaries. And a lot of those people who are running are very accessible because, a lot of them have the hopes of winning their primary so that they can get a larger backing by their respective party. And then they can really do the bigger mass media type stuff. So right now, this is still that era where they're going to the elementary school, gymnasium to answer questions. They're having the meeting at the playground. They're having the meeting at the coffee shop. They'll happily knock on your door to tell you why you should vote for them. So lock in. And then even outside of that, we know there's tons and tons of elections at your state levels. So lock in, folks. That's all I'll say. There's a lot of scammation going on already, but we might as well at least try to be as active as we possibly can. You know what I mean? All right, let's read some comments here. And then I want to take a minute and talk about this NAACP boycott, which will probably be the longest segment of this live. Thank you. What up, Iron Will? Salute, brother. Here's a little something for the collection plate. Amen. Praise him. All right, I appreciate Iron Will. He's been a long time subscriber too. Been here for a lot of years. Let's see. Somebody said just voted in the primary Saturday, but hope I actually get to meet candidates and ask them specifics by the midterms. So Tyler said I'd argue that the primaries are the most important. Andre said exposure and popularity really does it, because again, you got, and a lot of times, to be honest, a lot of times people will also just vote on name recognition. Now, I will say Georgia, Brian Kemp, you tried it with that last minute shift where you saw in those 5 districts in Georgia, he set it up where when the people were on the ballot, you couldn't put the R or the D next to their name. And there was the assumption that people would be too stupid to figure out who's with what party, because, a lot of people really just vote by the R or by the D. And so it's interesting that he specifically targeted 5 areas that have large Black voter demographics. So that's why I'm like, make sure y'all are vigilant with your voting and locking in and filling out the entire ballot. You know what I mean? All of those positions are important. I think what sucks with Georgia, and this is why I say we have to look at the long term, the strategy Georgia was trying to do with their state Supreme Court was that there were 2 positions possible that could have been flipped. And then when we're talking long-term strategy, yeah, it would have still been a Republican majority with those 2 Democratic seats. But in the next election cycle coming into 2028, there were going to be more seats up for grabs, and they would have had a possibility to maybe flip. And so this is why when we're talking politics, it's a long-term stretch. It's not always in the moment. This is why I sometimes get annoyed when people become super reactive and act in the moment and don't look at the bigger picture or think long-term about what is strategy. Because the reason we're in a lot of what we're in now is because this demographic has had the patience to sit and take a lot of losses and some gains and some wins, and they were in it for the long haul, because whiteness never gets tired. They always gonna fight for theirs, right? And so here we are in, I don't know what era of America this is, but here we are, and it's the result of one group collectively locked in and has always chose whiteness over everything. And then everybody else is under one big umbrella together, and we over here fighting and then fighting over who gets what and who ain't did what, because you ain't this enough and you ain't that enough, and I don't, well, and I just won't vote at all. Well, just F your whole part. Now I'm so mad, I'm voting for another thing. Teach you a lesson. And so we got all that going on. Meanwhile, they still just stripping away stuff and gutting laws and overturning elections and stealing Supreme Court seats and everything else under the sun. And with a little sprinkle of anti-DEI in there for razzle dazzle. Okay, anyway, I need to sip of this tea and then we're going to start. All right, so let's talk about this boycott. I'm going to pull up the article, and then we're going to have a very serious discussion here. All right. So the NAACP has launched this as a result of what has been happening when it comes to the attack on Black voter rights. And so they have this campaign called Out of Bounds. We're calling for Black athletes, families, alumni, and fans to withhold athletic and financial support from public universities in southern states attacking Black voter rights or voting rights, right? No representation, no recruitment, no revenue. Across the South, Black athletes have helped build some of the most profitable college athletic programs in America, generating hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue. At the same time, several southern state governments are moving to limit, reduce, weaken, or erase Black voting representation by creating new unconstitutional voting districts. You can't have one without the other. Profiting off Black athletes while suppressing their vote is out of bounds. And then they have a portion on here for the athlete where you would click, and I will not allow my talent, labor, name, image, likeness, family, or community pride to be used to enrich institutions in states that are working to silence Black voters. And then let's see where this takes us. Okay, you just put in all your information. And then on the same, what up, Jennifer? I don't know why you're on my screen, but hey, all right. And then alumni and fans, same thing. I pledge to advocate with my dollars and withhold economic support from the teams at my favorite university until fair maps are restored. They give you some stats here. And then these are some of the things that they're also fighting for. Let's see. Well, they said 20% of Division I athletes who identify as Black, an 8% increase over the previous decade reported by the NCAA. Black athletes drive college sports. Universities can't actively recruit Black athletes without advocating for their civil rights. We're calling on Black athletes, families, alumni, and fans to withhold athletic and financial support from public universities in southern states attacking Black voting rights. until these states, one, adopt state voting rights act or a state voting rights act, two, withdraw or repeal maps that dilute black voting power, three, restore congressional and or judicial districts that reflect the state's black population and voting strength, four, commit to transparent community-centered redistricting processes, five, protect districts where black voters have the opportunity to elect candidates of choice, and six, stop using power to weaken black representation while public institutions profit from black talent. And then there's just some more stuff. And then they actually have a list of all the schools that they're beefing. Mainly these are all SEC schools. And so they'll give you the public schools that you should have your smoke for, and then schools that maybe you should consider going to if you're an athlete, right? So, University of Florida, they on some nonsense. Okay, so go to Florida A&M. University of Georgia, they got their stuff going. So why don't you go to SSU in Savannah, right? You go to the beach after class, right? Also, all the different schools here. So that's what they're going for. So I want to, let me say this, because I think, well, one, there's been similar kind of plans and stuff announced before. Like we've seen in Georgia, there was the boycott of companies in Georgia as a result of the state's legislature trying to push Jim Crow 2.0 to the point where the Major League Baseball All-Star game was moved out of Atlanta that one year. They've since returned. And then you saw that there was the ask for a lot of black students to kind of not go to school in the state of Florida as a result of the anti-DEI and the blocking of teaching of black history in the state. So there's been different things here and there. But I want to say this. Now, one, as far as this boycott, and I'm going to be looking here because I got a lot of notes that I wrote down. Like, I swear, my notes be getting longer and longer. Back when we used to do these lives, I used to have like 5 cute little pages with some bullet points. Now I'd be on here like typing whole paragraphs. So I'm not against what is attempting to be done, and I won't stand in the way of the progress that they're trying to make. But I think there's a few things that should have been considered before, or at least some things that should be considered as they push forward. If we're thinking about what is being asked, right? We're currently asking this current cohort of athletes, and I'm speaking specifically of the high school seniors that have either just graduated or graduate next month, right? That cohort of athletes who have basketball or football dreams or whatever, we're asking them to consider saying no to whatever, SEC, if they've gotten into an SEC school, saying no to one of those SEC programs and going somewhere else. My issue with that, even though I love it, it's kind of like that was an ask that needed to take place earlier, mainly because today is May 20th, and in a few hours, it's going to be May 21st. Signing day for most of these athletes was February 4th. Even for prospective students who just want to go to the school, the commitment day was May 1st. And so what that means is, even if they were to say, yes, you know what, I love this, I need to stick up for my people, hell yeah, F this school, F that school, there aren't the same amount of opportunities for them to go to something else and still have the same opportunities afforded to them because many of those opportunities have closed. If you're talking about a transfer portal, because again, these are D1 schools, that sports stuff is real intense. If you are a D1 athlete, you have to enter that transfer portal in order to successfully get into another program and still be eligible to play within that same year. The portal has already closed until 2027, which means that any person who transfers into another school, into another program, they have to wait one full academic year to play, right? And so that also means they're now in competition with the following incoming class. That would be the class that's coming in 2027. And there's no guarantee that the university is still going to have the same excitement for them once that next group comes in, because now, again, they've been pretty much sitting on the bench for a year. They can practice, but they can't play. And so, again, there's things that we have to also consider, even the conversation of walk-ons and transfers versus students that are recruited. We know that when it comes to scholarships, when it comes to programs, resources, things are a little bit different. How many of you remember, we covered this a while back. Let me just share my screen real quick. And stay with me. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. How many of you guys remember when we did this documentary? This is 2018, right? There was this documentary called Student Athlete. It's on, I guess, HBO Max or something. It's on one of these platforms. But this was a documentary that followed a bunch of high school students who had, sports dreams and were going into the college realm, or maybe they went to academies that were competitive that would get them a better shot at getting into a D1 school. But in the documentary, we meet one student who ended up transferring from their university to, actually, I think they started out in community college and then they transferred into a larger D1 school. And because of that, the D1 school didn't give them the same benefits that a recruit would get. So they didn't get the big scholarship money. This student didn't even have a place to live. So there was a lovely family who was like, you're such a nice kid. You're great at practice. You can come stay with us, right? They give the kid a room, and here's $200 for food. Of course, this violates the NCAA rules. This student is now kicked out of the school, out of the program, and they're ineligible to come on to any other D1 institution for sports nationwide within the NCAA. And so the documentary just takes you on a journey of what it was like for that student. And that was just one. There was other students who were like basketball players. There's one guy who was like 30 years old, still trying to get in and everything like that. But with this specific student, it just took us through the hardships that student went through trying to, make their sports dream come true. And in addition to that, by the time you get to the end of the documentary, they never were able to get on with anything. They ended up doing, I think it was like indoor football or arena football league, and they're making maybe $30,000 a year. So all of those things are just some bits to kind of think about. Now, this is where I want to get to the bigger piece of the conversation. The reality is this. It is highly unlikely that right now, if we're talking about this current group that's coming in for the class of, not the class of 2026, but the incoming group that starts in 2026. 7, 8, 9, 10. So I guess they would be class of 2030. It's highly unlikely that it's highly unlikely that you're going to get more than a sprinkle of students who would even say yes to such a big ask in such short notice. Now, if you want to utilize this moment as kind of like a soft launch to see what's going to work and what's not, my thought would be, if this is the route we want to go, because I'm all for a boycott. I'm all for telling everybody where they can go and how to get there and how to stay there permanently. But I think with this conversation, the strategic plan, there needs to be a strategic plan that pushes for like a long-term strategy. And what I mean by that is like creating a plan that aims to have a significantly larger amount of Black students that are boycotting these institutions and choosing to go elsewhere and taking their talent somewhere else, right? And choosing institutions that don't endorse this kind of foolery or don't stand by and remain silent while utilizing Black bodies for their collective gain when it comes to athletics, right? To the point where it should get to the point where you have so many that have boycotted or that are just, they have a totally different outlook and are not choosing to go to some of these institutions, to the point where these institutions are no longer seen as the end-all be-all for success and opportunity. Understand, when we're talking the SEC, they're sitting on $1.1 billion of revenue. That's just how big their program is. And so for me, I see this as, if we want to go this route, and again, like I said, I feel like this is interesting and I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. But to me, the aim should be for a generational shift at how we look at college athletics, not just the reactionary, let's do this in the moment because all of these things went wrong and now we're going to put it on the kids to fix the problem, right? And so if we're looking at it based on what's being presented, I don't see it being very successful right now because there hasn't been enough thought process into how do you even execute this. Maybe this can be the striking of the match, but if you're talking about the Inferno is not here yet, and there's more work to be done. But like I said, the idea of looking at a generational shift. So yes, maybe right now in 2026, we can't see this necessarily working with this first group that would be coming in, but let's talk about, what does 2036 look like, right? Can we see a world in the same space that voters, like, let's think about how, like, right now politically, we have a lot of voters who they got the purity test, right? They are not playing about their candidates. If you don't, you don't get my vote, no ifs, ands, or buts. And some of them are willing to let it all burn down at the expense of all of us being collateral, for them to hold on to their point, right? Same thing with, people who will not get behind a candidate who takes APAC money. Absolutely not. Nope, not voting for you, not. Can we envision a space by the time we get to 2036 where Black student athletes have that same approach with some of the institutions that recruit them? Like, okay, you're recruiting me to play football or basketball or baseball or swim or do track or do soccer, but where do you stand on Black voter rights? Where do you stand on this? Are you one of the institutions that caved and got rid of everything related to DEI? Did you get rid of your humanities programs? Did you get rid of your African American studies programs? Like, can we envision a 2036 where that starts to become the normal way of thinking for a lot of the student athletes that are looking for the next place to call home for the next 4 years? And so that's kind of the question that I have. And then in addition to that, even like with these prospective athletes, like when it comes to them having these standards that they would commit to, my bigger question becomes, we know that in order for something to work, you need numbers and you need buy-in. And we need that from the students, and you need that from the adults, like their parents. And like I said, I think right now, because I don't feel that this was something that was like, I don't feel like people went into a room and really thought this out and had conversation and pulled in a lot of student athletes to say, what do you think? To me, this has come off as the adults in the room said, this is what y'all gonna do, and you guys need to do it. And it leads me to the next question when we're talking about these student athletes. Okay, these are kids that are 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, right? My question becomes, even as a society and as the adults in the room, have we even prepared this cohort of youth? And I'm talking specifically folks that are about 15 to 20. Have we even prepared that cohort of people on how to effectively even move in this current political climate, how to move in this space of anti-Blackness, all while still having a sense of their own consciousness and an understanding of community and collective politics? Like, I don't think we've done that. And so to me, it's kind of like thinking you can climb Mount Everest without all the equipment. That's what this is coming off to me as, because I don't feel that society has done a good job of making sure that this up and coming generation was ready for what was happening, because even the adults weren't. Look at how we're moving right now with everything that's happening. Everybody's all over the place. Nobody got no answers. People throwing in the towel. Some folks are like, let me just get my flight. I'm out. You know what I mean? And then at the same time, are they even in a headspace to understand what is being asked of them? And would they even be willing? Because you got to put yourself in the shoes of somebody who may be 16 or 17 years old. And this is the one thing that they've dreamed of their entire life. And then after they've already gotten in or committed, and there's no guarantee that there's going to be another school that gives them exactly the same opportunity, we're now telling them, well, y'all got to boycott now because we lost our voting rights. And my response to that is, well, we also lost our voting rights because for the last 10, 15 years, the adults haven't been showing up to the polls. And people were staying home and protest votes and this, that, and the third, right? And as we, like I said, when we keep giving that little baby inch and keep giving an inch to nonsense, they have now run a marathon on us. The marathon is now gutting of the Voting Rights Act. The marathon is now gutting of affirmative action. The marathon now is anti-DEI. The marathon now is 600,000 Black folks fired from the federal government and probably more to come. Like that, now we're in the marathon, right? And the reality is, even with the idea of wanting these kids to be more politically active, a lot of these kids have never even voted before because they weren't old enough. If we're talking, incoming freshmen, and so even a conversation of voting rights to them may not even seem as important. And it goes back to the story I was telling on my last live where I talked about when I had an opportunity to vote in my first election, which was the midterms of 2006. I didn't. Mind you, Howard had a big meeting at the dorm, called us all in there, told us this is the most important election of your life because, like I was saying, they wanted to take the House and the Senate from George Bush, so he couldn't mess up anything else at the time. And I received everything they said. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make sure I do it. But because I was so pressed to go to the party, and look, DC nightlife used to be lit. This is the era of Ibiza, H2O, Fur, Love, Platinum, Home, Republic Gardens, like club after club. My focus was everywhere else. And then I wasn't paying attention and missed the whole election, right? Now, I did vote in the 2008 presidential election. But again, thinking in that headspace, I couldn't understand the importance yet because I just wasn't there yet. And I was young and I was a small town kid that was now living in the big city and excited to just be outside, right? And not under my parents' roof and have to follow their rules. So my priorities were all over the place. And so my question becomes, has this upcoming group been taught enough to understand what's actually happening right now? And I ask this because, again, just a few years ago, the way that civil rights and history was talked about, it was always spoken with finality, meaning that everything that happened in the past is done. We've moved forward. Everything is good now. Think about how you were taught about the Voting Rights Act. You were taught about the Voting Rights Act as something that would never change. It was going to be locked in forever, and we lived happily ever after. And we also got the Civil Rights Act, and we lived happily ever after. And the Fair Housing Act came, and we lived happily ever after, right? And even the term post-racial, but society just stopped even using that term maybe 10 years ago once Trump got in there and people realized, oh, yeah, we've been living in Eureka's castle land because everything that we thought was reality is not reality, right? We've spoken about how the advancements of the past were meant to live forever. We talked about everything like we would never have to revisit these conversations again. We had the conversations of symbolism that also came in. And we often heard about, how far we've come, how far we've come, how far we've come. So when you embed and deep into somebody's head how far we've come and we've made it and all this stuff is good now, you're going to raise an entire generation of people who think everything is all good and it's all gravy under the sun, ain't no issues. So we don't need to shake the table. And that's why we get into the space where now even adults who are, in my age group are moving around here thinking that stuff is not a big deal, or people are overreacting, or it is what it is, or y'all, you got to learn to let the past go. You keep talking about racism and bringing it up, it's never going to go away, right? There are people who have collectively chosen to stay in their lane of stupidity for the level of comfort that they like to abide by, and they're not budging. And so if the adults are moving that way, adults who have lived long enough to understand cause and effect, adults who have seen the end result of bad policy, may even be experiencing it, might be cussing right now when they go to the gas pump, especially if they got to use premium. Like, oh, right? And there are still some who are just like, well, it is what it is. Because you at least, my 401k is still growing. It is what it is. We got to do these things in order for, some people got to suffer for things to work. Like, that's the reality. And so if we're having that conversation, you have to understand that this incoming group of athletes, these are the students that are the children of anti-CRT, where just a few years ago, books were being yanked out of the classrooms. Libraries had to get rid of books. There were book burnings, right? These are the children of the anti-woke movement. For all of their teenage years, maybe even upper elementary years, they have been taught that it is a problem to want to shake the table. They have been taught that it is a problem to speak up for your community. You're being seen as woke. And woke has been utilized as a blanket statement to pretty much shut down any conversation of critical thinking, so that everybody can remain sheep and be comfortable with the status quo of whiteness in this country, right? These are the children of anti-DEI, right? And education where they at least spent 2 years of it on Zoom because we were in COVID. And so the question becomes, again, are these kids even in a space to carry that load? And I'm not trying to say every kid is not locked in or whatever, because tons of kids get it. Tons of kids are all about, the people, this, that, and the third. I love seeing the Khalil Green kid. I only say that because he ain't technically one of my kids, but he was in the same company. I love seeing that he has just expanded and built this massive platform educating his peers, right? There are people in that cohort that are doing it. Unfortunately, I don't think we have enough in reality. And so that's where we're at. And then, again, we're also in a space that is dominated by individualism, self-indulgence, greed, lack of empathy, right? Can you really expect a kid who has had all of that going on, in addition to having a lifelong dream of most likely going to an SEC school, can you really expect them to be in the headspace to even understand what it is that's being asked of them right now, and of them to actually receive it, especially with a 2-day notice? At least when you quit a job, you give 2 weeks, right? And then again, especially if there's no guarantee that there will be an additional opportunity somewhere that has all of the exact same benefits that they were already being offered. And please don't take this as me giving a pass for everybody to just say, back off. What I'm trying to say is, I love this idea, but this is not we can do this in 1 year kind of thing. This is we can build this in a decade. This is if we lock in and put in the groundwork, yes, this can be a thing. Maybe we can shift the cultural dynamics of how we see college athletic sports and how we see our Black youth going into these spaces. Yes, but trying to do it in 2 weeks because we're being reactionary to the fact that we've lost more voting rights, when in reality, all of that has been on the table for years. At least since 2022 or 2023, I've been on my channel ranting and raving about Parts 2A of the Voting Rights Act. So it's not like we just found this out a month ago. And then the other thing too, and again, I'm trying to not give a pass to people just being complacent, but I just want us to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we're asking to now be the leaders overnight. Again, these people are young. These are the folks that have the NBA, NFL dreams. I want to help my family. I want to be like Jalen Hurts. This has been their North Star probably since they were in middle school, right? And if they have never had a real conversation about the world around them, it's going to definitely be an uphill battle trying to get a lot of these athletes to want to say, I'm going to turn down this full ride scholarship that's going to give me an opportunity to, one, really, they all want to go to the NFL. Nobody care about the education, but yes, get an education, but also have an opportunity to get into a professional sport that I want to be in. I'm willing to throw all of that away for my community. I don't think our kids are there. And in reality, there's a lot of adults who are not even there, right? Now, I don't think all hope is lost at all. But the reality is that if we're going to go this route, then you have to start now, and you start now with the even younger youth. I'm talking those who are 10 or 11 years old, as far as teaching them, right? Helping them to see and understand their self-worth, helping them to understand how anti-blackness works. We don't have to be afraid to have these conversations with these kids. They know what's going on. They're living in the same world that we're living in. They're watching the same TV shows we're watching. They're getting on the same city bus that we're getting on. They're seeing the same antics and seeing the same tragedies that we're seeing. So don't think that the kids are too sensitive to understand these conversations. You just have to understand how to deliver that conversation to the youth in a way that they can understand through a lens of how they see the world, right? That starts with us preparing them to be politically engaging adults, right? And this is where the conversation of community comes in. And that's why I'm always talking about community and discernment on every live. This is where our teachers come in. And again, adults, we got to stop fighting and beating up the actual teachers that are actually trying to do the right thing. Yes, we know we got some teachers that are on some BS, but a lot of the teachers are doing the best that they can. And then we got adults and parents who are standing in the way, right? But again, this is where the teachers come in. This is where the after school programs come in. This is where your barber comes in, the sports coaches, the mentors, the godparents. And really what I think should be happening, if you want this to even have any kind of element of success, then you have to start building coalitions that are aimed at specifically targeting this kind of work and not just leaving it on the everyday citizen who may not want to be as civically engaged, who may just want to go to the polls when it's time to vote and live their life. Not everybody's going to be a Malcolm X, right? Not everybody is going to be, ready to be a Fred Hampton or put their life on the line. Not everybody is destined or called to do that. And there are some people in society who just want to live their life. And they will do the bare minimum if you tell them what to do, right? If it's just go to the poll and vote, they will do that. If it's just, can you raise your kids to be just decent adults? They'll do that. They'll make sure the kids ain't taking shots when they're 14, right? So that's the reality. And so when we're talking about like those coalitions, I feel like there should be coalitions that are created specifically where their primary goal is to enhance the power of something like an HBCU. And it's not to say that every one of these athletes should go to an HBCU if they can't go to one of these SEC schools, because in reality, there are other options out there as well when it comes to sports opportunity. And sadly, because HBCUs do not receive the same kind of funding, this is why we unfortunately lose a lot of our athletes, which goes back to my coalition, where part of that coalition one of their things would be about raising more revenue for HBCUs and for their programs so that a lot of these sports programs at the HBCUs can be just as competitive as some of the Big Ten teams and the other divisions and everything else like that. Like, that's the reality, right? The idea of recruitment for something like HBCUs and helping enrollment to get even higher. We're living through it right now where enrollment at HBCUs is actually climbing because a lot of young people are like, I don't know what the F is going on in this country, but I need to be in a space where I feel safe. And so now our HBCUs, as much as we love that they're getting larger and larger enrollments, they're overburdened and overwhelmed because they barely have the resources to take on this influx of students that are coming in. It's a repeat of what we saw in the 1980s. And so, when we're talking about building grassroots coalitions, and there's probably some that are already doing this work, we just have to find out who they are and put them on the right platforms. But again, advocating and securing funding and enhancing what's already there, right? Maybe there's a segment or a coalition that's specifically composed of some of our best lawyers in the community, and they fight to ensure that HBCUs specifically are properly funded and also given what's owed to them. Let's talk about Tennessee State, right? And the $2 billion that they're owed from the state of Tennessee. And we saw what Tennessee did, right? TSU was like, you owe us $2 billion. And what did they do? They flushed out the board and put a bunch of cronies in there to make sure that TSU wouldn't talk too much and just shut up and be quiet, right? We need lawyers and folks in the community that are going to tackle that kind of work, that have the credentials to do that, right? And again, let's just picture if a TSU was given their $2 billion that was owed. Imagine what they get to do in that academic year. Imagine what their sports programs look like. Imagine, and I haven't been to TSU, so I can only speak from hypotheticals, but imagine what else they get to add and get to enhance, right? Shout out to our TSU folks. I think, Tyler, I think you're a TSU person. I can't remember. Anyway, but going back to my other piece, again, if you're trying to have this idea of building a cohort of up-and-coming young people who will be ready for the call like this by the time they're 17 and 18, then you need to already have those coalitions that are teaching our youth humanities, right? Civics, the arts, in addition to STEM. Society has turned into a STEM-only space. That's why I can't stand like the Elon Musks and the Bezos and all them, because even though, these technological advances, which I am not impressed by, nobody asked for AI and it's messing up everything. But anyway, it's already here now. We got to deal with it. But these are people like Zuckerberg, all of them, they don't understand humanities. They have no ethics. They don't understand civics. All they know is money, right? And they're almost influencing an entire cohort of people who move the same way, where they have no empathy. They don't consider just life. Even when you look at what was proposed with the Doge cuts, even this Ebola outbreak that's out there, you realize the people that managed the last Ebola outbreak in 2014, where all of us got to sleep peacefully at night because there were only 2 cases that found their way in the United States, and then those were handled quickly. Those people have all been riffed and fired, and their divisions have been destroyed and gutted and cut with those. That's the USAID. That's all those different all that's gone. That's at the hands of an Elon, who, again, somebody who does not understand that as humans, we do human things and we need connection. In addition to just profit and working, we need experiences and we need collective everything in order for a society to work. So you have to get back into the element of teaching humanities, civics, arts, history. History is repeating itself right now because so many people collectively chose to remain ignorant and pretend that literally things that happened 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago couldn't happen again. Now they're all happening again. And everybody's over here being shocked. And I'm like, all right, cool. Right. But getting to my point, if you're building these different coalitions or these organizations or these grassroots groups, right, that are like helping to teach accurate history, cause and effect, pouring into the youth collectively, right? And these have to be programs that are just as popular as something like a YMCA or a Big Brother, Big Sister, or a Boys and Girls Club. In the same way that PragerU is now finding its way into public school curriculums in states like Florida, and in the same way that Turning Point USA is finding its way all over college campuses and having heavy influence to the point where now they've shifted into the churches and they're now correlating their anti-Black racism with Jesus, right? We have to have exactly the same alternative, but even stronger to counterbalance the nonsense, where the power that is within these organizations and the influence that they have is so much stronger than the foolery that's being spoon-fed to all these folks right now that you can pull them out of that nonsense, right? Because again, there's too much going on, right? And I think so many people have just gotten so comfortable. We normalize chaos. We normalize everything that is currently wrong, even right now. How are people not burning down every building in every city right now, every day, with everything that's happening, right? Every now and then they do a cute little No Kings protest and they put on the dinosaur costume. And, they might even do the Thriller routine. I can't do it. I'm gonna hit my mic, right? And that's about all you get, right? We've just normalized it. And so again, if you want to recruit young Black athletes who are going to be in a space to make the choice where they'll say, I'm going to turn down an LSU, I'm going to turn down a Florida State, I'm going to turn down a Georgia Tech, then you can't wait till they're 17 or 18 years old and try to drop all of the Black Clyde experience on them in one conversation because we need you to turn this down because we got to teach a lesson to these states. A little too late for that. You had to get that when they were younger. They've already grown up, right? This even goes back to the work with my center. One of the things that we strived for in the organization was they always needed more and more teams, because teams are hard to pull in. And what worked for my center and what I fully understood at the time was you got to start with the young ones and you build the rapport and you build the relationship and you instill the qualities. You make them feel valued. You make them feel recognized. You give them their opportunities, right? You create a positive environment for them to be in, an environment that feels safe, a space where they can come to you for anything, a space where they know they're going to have a good time and they're going to make friends and all that. And when you give them that as younger children, and then you also have opportunities for your teenagers to go and do different things. Like my teens got to do everything when I was there. They got to hang with Denzel Washington. They have probably met every artist, celebrity that came to Capital One Arena because we always had tickets, right? They always got to go backstage and meet this person. They got opportunities to connect with CEOs and go to big corporate galas and any kind of speaking engagement that we could find. I had them kids in everything. So my little kids were always excited to become teenagers because they knew they could do all the cool things that the teenagers were doing. And so I say all that to say, by the time I left my center was majority teenager, because not only, and it was because my little kids grew up and just never left. And once I had that cohort of teens that were like really locked in, then they bring in their friends and they're like, because their friends like, hey, you want to go to so-and-so? No, me and Mr. Michael got the thing today. And they're like, who the heck is Mr. Michael? And then they bring him to the center. No, this is Mr. Michael. And then, hey, and before you know it, now they even joined. And this person's joining. And next thing you know, I got a crew of like 60 teenagers. And then in addition to that, I gave them a space to want to be heard. One of my teenagers was like, Mr. Michael, this is cool, but sometimes I feel like we got to find a way, like there's stuff we want to get off our chest that we can't talk to our parents about. And our schools don't really give us the lane for these conversations. So me and Ava started this whole program along with 2 or 3 of my teenagers where I would close the entire center down at maybe like the last hour of operation. The little kids go home a little bit earlier, and it's only those teenagers. We set up a big round table. I order some pizzas, some ginger ale, some Cokes and some Pepsi, maybe a few little cookies here and there. I let the teenagers create every topic they want to talk about, write all the questions they got, put it all in the hat. We're going to draw it from the hat and just have a conversation. And that conversation may go anywhere. Some days it's politics. Some days it's I'm sick of my parents. Some days it's I don't even know who I am sexually and I'm uncomfortable, but I feel safe around you guys to have this conversation. I don't know what to do because I think my parents would kick me out if they found out this is how I feel. Like those are those kind of conversations that those teens were having. And so, you give them that space to be heard. And before you know it, me and Ava didn't even have to say much in the thing. It was like they could carry the whole conversation, and we're more so just the moderators. We're not trying to tell them how to feel or how to think. We gave them a space to be seen, to be heard, and to understand that they are a valuable contribution to society. And so we fast forward, and I'm always bragging on my kids, but damn it, I'm sorry. It was 11 years of my life, so I'm always going to talk about them. But, that's how I was able to get what I got. And it was like only my center had that number of teens. The other programs nearby and centers were trying to copy what we were doing. And I kept saying, you got to start when they're young and you have to build the relationship. You have to build up. You can't just wait till they're 16, 17, and 18 and think they're going to want to come into a center. Even when I think back to when I was 17, 18, well, not even 18, I was in college by then, but 16, 17 years old, there was a YMCA down the street, maybe. Well, we had cars, so you could drive and stuff. So maybe like 15-minute drive, there's a YMCA. I was never going to that. Why? Because I already had my freedom. I've already been at house parties. We are, going to the mall and doing all this other stuff. I'm not going to sit in no community center to be told to sit down all day. F that, right? And so I was one of those teens you were never going to be able to pull in. However, had I been going to that YMCA maybe since I was 5 or 6 and maybe learned to swim there and had a rapport with staff and stuff, maybe I would have looked at that place a lot differently. And so I said that to say that same program that my team was like, we should do because we want to be heard too, it expanded to the point where we started doing it beyond the walls of my center and we started bringing in the other centers. And then before you know it, it became a program that was vetted and then all the other centers had to run it, right? And then we're doing conferences and now you're running that same program that you started with 15 or 16 teenagers and now you're doing it with 300. And you don't even have to run it. Your teenagers are running it. Because they have the trust in themselves and the know-how and the confidence to carry a conversation with. Can you picture trying to entertain 300 teenagers? Teenagers, we love them, but if they're not your cohort of teens, if they're not the group you work with, teenagers are, that's a group there. So what I want to get, I'm starting to get a little too far off my point, but again, so with this, if the NAACP wants something like this to work, they have to understand that this is not going to be a one school cycle effort. You got to think long term. You got to think the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And the goal should be, yes, get our demands met. But at the same time, we don't even want to go back to what was. One of the problems I'm seeing is the things that we are losing or that are being taken away from us, we're fighting to just get them back, which is lovely. But the thing is, we've already gotten too comfortable with allowing things like majority institutions to dictate what happens with athletics, right? Same for many corporations, same for politicians. And if we keep returning to what was, what that means is we're living in a space of being unstable because we're at the mercy of collective white decency, something that they have thrown away long time ago, have never lived and abided by it. And so, yeah, you're going to make your demands, you're going to do everything. But now at this time, you got to pivot and shift the norm of what we understand to the point where we get to a place where we don't need anything that they have going. And even when they try and do the things that they do to, things like attack the Fearless Fund. And I have an example of a story later on with this doctor kind of reference website that's being sued, where it gets to the point where we become so self-sufficient that nothing they throw at us can bother us anymore, right? And so the idea is, all right, let's make these demands. Let's shake it up. And then let's go bigger. Yes, voting rights, because I found it interesting. They kind of intertwine voting rights in the sports world. I say, okay, cool, but okay, let's go after the voting rights. Let's go after what's going on in education. Let's go after everything. If we don't go all out, let's go all out. Y'all, this patchwork stuff we doing, we do a little bit here, they do a little bit here, and then while you were doing this little bit, they took that back, and then you went back to this to fix that, and they took that back. Get everything. Can we kick some trash cans over at this point? That's where I'm at. So the respectability speeches and the singing, it's lovely. It looks great on camera. You sound good. I love the 3-part harmonies. But at this point, y'all keep trying to appeal to the moral compass of a collective of people that don't have any morals and don't care and are proud about it, and will find every way to destroy and take away every little bit that you have. So at some point, we got to understand that these folks, we are never going to be able to break bread with them. Let's stop always trying to be friends with everybody. Let's stop inviting everybody into every space that we have. We're going to have to just give some folks some tough love. And we got to, at this point, make things work within our respective selves. And for those who claim to be allies, thank you. We love what you got going. But now, even holding fire to their feet, what more are y'all doing outside of tweeting? What more are y'all doing outside of being outraged and concerned and crying? Right? Either be about it or just get out the way. Be about something or be about my way. That's where I'm at. And so, yeah, like I said, make your demands, but get to the point where we don't have to utilize everything that they have, right? Because again, like I said, this will not be an overnight venture. Folks have to be willing to stay the course long term and not jump ship once they get comfortable or once symbolism comes into the picture like it normally does, like clockwork, right? Because again, even when we're talking about these institutions, and I'm sorry that I'm still going on this, but we you know, I like to get on my soapbox. Think about how these majority institutions became so wealthy to begin with. If we take away the conversation of slave revenue from things like a Harvard or a Georgetown, but when we talk about these athletic programs, right, we got to backtrack. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, right? That takes place. Schools are now integrated. What was the first thing that happens with HBCUs? HBCUs start losing enrollment because Black students now know that they have additional options. And so they start going into more of the majority institutions. But as they're going to these majority institutions, they're doing it just as sports media is becoming a thing, just as the college football games, the college basketball games, and all the other games. Yeah, some of them were being broadcast on radio, but now they're being broadcast on television. And there's conversations of ad revenue, especially in those early years where there was only so many channels to watch anyway. So sometimes a college football game can have 20, 30, 40, 50 million viewers, right? And so money is coming out the behind, and you got the advertising. And so you end up getting these majority institutions that have built multi-million-dollar empires off Black physicality, right? Now, on the flip side, during that time period, we had a lot of HBCUs close. We had HBCUs have to sell off property because they didn't have enough students. We had to watch HBCUs downsize and layoffs and merge and everything else like that. And like we said, enrollment declined until we got into the 80s. Then Reaganomics started doing a number on folks. And folks were like, wait a minute, hold on. I need to be with my collective. And then you also give credit to shows like The Cosby Show in a different world that showcase just how cool it could be to be at an HBCU, and boom, enrollment skyrockets. But now the problem is these HBCUs can't accommodate because they sold off all this property. They stopped putting, you know, a larger segment into the sports program or into this or into that. And they had to maneuver with what was available to them in the moment that they're in. I think HBCUs have done a great job of trying to meet the moment in the last few years. But again, that conversation of resources is still not there when we're just talking endowments, right? And so again, even when we're talking about a lot of these majority institutions or PWIs, so many of them are well known solely because of their sports programs. Think about the fact that a lot of these really, really big name schools are in towns most of you have never heard of and would never ever go visit, to the point where those towns, the entire economy is based around that university. And that university, when we're talking about its revenue and how it was able to build all the state of the art, you know, edifices, my pastor used to like saying that word, we're going to build an edifice, right? Building these giant stadiums and Olympic-sized swimming pools and tracks and fields and everything else like that. All of that came from, again, the revenue that came once all these Black athletes started going to these institutions. And so it gets to a point where some of these small towns, no matter how many different ways people want to try to deny it, some of these towns can't survive without Black athleticism, right? And so, again, a much bigger picture. And I just see, if we're going to go this route, go for everything. That's where I'm at this point. And this is why I keep saying, like, the idea of thinking bigger, because when we limit ourselves, when we do like the patchwork stuff, we run into issues. Now, I want to shift gears to a story just to prove my point. And this is just showing how things can sometimes work full circle. So let me pull this article up. And it's crazy because I remember when we covered this in 2015. All right. Anybody remember this face? Let me take a sip of my tea real quick. All right. This was Jonathan Butler. Now, Jonathan Butler was a student at Mizzou, right? Over in Missouri. And he had gone on a hunger strike solely because there were all kind of problems taking place at the university. And you had racial slurs being thrown at black students. White folks, for some reason, y'all love to play with poop and feces. They were drawing swastikas on the walls with feces because that's just a fun, cool thing to do. And all kind of disruptive incidents that continue to target black students at the university. So Jonathan decided, well, I'm going to go on a hunger strike until the president of the university resigns, who was Tim Wolf. So around the same time, there was a student, Jamon Moore, who was on the football team, and he sees all these different tents and stuff that are on the campus. And he's like, what's this about? Because again, a lot of times at these universities, especially the bigger ones with these big sports programs, athletes and the other undergraduate students sometimes are not as intertwined. They, athletes have their own special dorm close to all the fields, and they got their own schedule, their own everything. So he's like, what's all these tents here for? What ended up happening is as Jonathan started his hunger strike, there were other students that would support him and set up tents and everything on the campus. So what ends up happening is Jamon, it lights a fire under him because he's concerned about Jonathan. Like, man, this guy's emaciated and nobody's really doing anything. What do you mean he's been here for like 4 days and hasn't eaten and nobody's done anything? What does he do? He gets 15 of his teammates from the football team and they have a meeting and they're like, what do we do? How can we help Jonathan in this situation? Right? And these are all the black athletes. And so they decide, and mind you, this is on November 7th of 2015. They decide, okay, we need a boycott. We will not play our next football game. We're not going to play BYU in Kansas City. We're going to boycott. And mind you, that game is the next week on November 14th. Right? And so they end up releasing a statement. I think it's a full article. This article, by the way, I shared it in the description. I'm not going to read it because it's a very long one, but it's very, very detailed. But I will share at least the quote that we have here if I can find the piece I'm looking for. And these are just pictures of, like, again, the students on the campus, what was going on. These are the players who were a part of the boycott. Again, the tents on the campus. Where's that quote I'm looking for? I might just read it from my other set of notes here. Here we go. I'll just read what I have. The athletes of color of the University of Missouri football team truly believe injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We will no longer participate in any football-related activities until President Tim Wolf resigns or is removed due to his negligence towards marginalized students' experiences. We are united. And just for some context with this school, now, when it came to the football team, 69% of that football team was black. And if the university ended up not playing that game against BYU, the university was going to have to pay $1 million to BYU. What do you think happened 38 hours later? President resigns. It's out of there. These are tears of joy. No, I'm just kidding. But no, so President Tim Wolf resigns, right? And this was literally in 38 hours. Again, please go back and read this article. See, that's that nasty stuff I was talking about with them and that swastika on the wall. Because all right, we're gonna stop sharing because my God, they find a way, right? Now this is where I want to come back to the full circle bit in this conversation, right? Football team is successful. This story makes its headlines. Everybody's talking about it. Black athletes understand their worth and the weight that they carry in these universities, and they understand who they are, right? Love it. And at the same time, the following year, student enrollment also took a huge decline following the protest in the fall of 2016. There was a 42% drop in black students and a 21% drop in white students. The number of black students has remained mostly on a steady decline ever since. And so when I'm talking about that conversation of thinking long-term, those students, they set the bar. They let you know, hey, everything at this place ain't what it's supposed to be like. I'm giving y'all a heads up. This might not be the spot you want to go to. So things to think about. But then at the same time, one of the reasons why that black enrollment continued to decline is because the school doubled back, right? In the decade since the turbulent fall of 2015 centered on racial issues, the political climate has shifted dramatically, and Mizzou has stripped diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and programs. The introduction of name, image, and likeness has also potentially altered the future of the player protests. In many ways, the progress made that November has been rolled back. But for a season, Mizzou football set a modern-day example of the power athletes have, right? That goes back to what I'm saying, where this isn't going to be just that we're going to do this in 1 year and go back to what we was doing, because as soon as we get back to what we were doing, look what happens. They roll back. So like I said, when we do this like patchwork thing, and again, this is not a dig to those students at all. I'm just talking about a bigger picture. When we're doing the patchwork thing, and I'm going to patch and put all my energy here, and then I'm going to come over here and get a little bit, and then I'm going to get on a little piece of this all way back here, and then this stuff way over here. Okay. And so while you're doing all that patchwork stuff, they are just undoing everything as you think you're moving forward, which is why at some point it's like you got to go after everything, right? And so with those students, again, to me, that was the moment to spread fire, right? They had a brilliant execution and they did everything right, but then everything stopped. And that's not to them. To me, it meant that other students at other universities needed to take that same kind of approach, because understand, it wasn't only happening at that school. Black athletes at a lot of these Southern institutions can tell you all the time the nonsense that they deal with, where half the time they're only respected because they are an athlete. But when it comes to those who want to do things in academia, then there's the conversation of, you stole my brother's seat, you ain't supposed to be here anyway. You're an affirmative action baby, right? Anyway, going back to Mizzou, imagine 10 straight years of that energy. Imagine if every year those football players from that school had the same kind of smoke and the same energy for nonsense, and that had spread to other universities where the students kept having that same kind of smoke every 10 years. The schools would understand what's up. They are not trying to mess up their programs because they know they need those athletes to generate their money. And so just imagine if you got Alabama and Florida, Georgia Tech, and all these different schools who are getting brought down to their knees by Black athletes who have collectively said, no, 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 right? We ain't putting up with that. Because in reality, going back, all of this started because one person knew what was up. That's why when I say the conversation of community and the role that everybody plays, like I said, everybody's not going to be the Malcolm X. Everybody's not going to be the next president. Everybody's not going to be the person to lead the charge. Sometimes you just see something within yourself that you feel some kind of way about, and you act on it. Jonathan said, you know what? I may not be able to gather people. I may not be able to do a speech, but you know what? I can stop eating. And I can set up a tent here, and eventually somebody's going to ask me, what am I doing? And then I'm going to tell them, and I'm going to tell them why. And then we raise the stakes, because think about it. If you were randomly walking up on a classmate and they tell you they're not going to eat until the president resigns, you're not going to be able to sleep at night. If you know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days have gone by and the president's still having their coffees and speeches and having a good time and playing golf and getting on the charter jet, and you know that classmate is on the yard wasting away, you're going to end up saying something to somebody else who will say something to somebody else. And before you know it, there's a whole movement that just started. Everybody's outside, right? And so there's that. Jonathan knew what was up. The players knew what their value was. And so my thing is, can we have that same fire, but extend it? Extend it beyond just the moment. So again, if they want to try to get these athletes to stop attending these universities until those different demands are met, let me go back to the demands that they were asking for. Real quick, let's go back to that, and then I'm actually gonna go to the comments in a sec, because we've been on this for a good minute. So going back to the demands that were there, because I do agree with all these demands. Adopt the state voting rights act, withdraw or repeal maps that dilute Black voting power, restore congressional and judicial districts that reflect the state's Black population and voting, commit to transparent community-centered redistricting processes, protect districts where Black voters have the opportunity to elect candidates of choice, stop using state power to weaken Black representation while public institutions profit from Black talent. All that I'm down for. But yeah, do that and then some. But again, I think we have to expand beyond just that. And so again, you may not get it with this current incoming class because it's kind of been dropped on them a little too late, but you can start with the one that's coming up after them and the one that's coming up after them. And with the more time that you have, the bigger your ask can be. As ask with a K, not this, right? And so, all right, I'm gonna pause because we've said a lot, and then I'm going to get to our next article, right? And again, it's not to be critical or try to shut down. It's just, if we're gonna do this, can we be strategic? Can we not just always be reactive and reacting to everything? Because again, when it comes to voting rights, that has been on the table for years. And I feel like a lot of the people who are making the most noise right now that are in positions of power weren't doing enough then to ensure that voting rights were going to be okay. Even the idea of codifying the Voting Rights Act, right? So if we're gonna do this, let's go all across. All right, I'm not gonna be able to get to every comment, but I'm gonna at least try to skim through as much as I can. I will let y'all know when I'm at the bottom of the chat so people can get me in real time. But for 1 second, I need to scroll back up. Somebody said I wasn't even political in my late teens like that, but Gen Z 1.0 kind of moves different. And I think social media to an extent has expanded that, because I will say I think there's a large segment of younger people who really are locked in and understand everything that's happening. When I think back to my 17 and 18-year-old self and I try to compare it to where a lot of these kids are, those kids are way beyond where I was at as far as how I saw the world or what I was locked in with, right? And so there's that. Somebody was saying they don't think it's putting it on the students. It's giving them an option if they want to consider getting involved. Most won't do it anyway. And I, yeah. So I'm not trying to say that they're putting all the weight on just that group, but it is a big ask. And that's why I'm like, okay, if we want to go that route, then we need to expand how you'd even approach that to the point where, give it some years, give it some effort. You're gonna have you're gonna have that group of folks who are even willing and excited to just do it because they understand what's at stake, kind of. And so somebody said, why are we pretending as if youth haven't been in politics boycotts before? Now, I will say, yeah, it's been the youth that have led most of these movements. When we're talking a lot of the stuff going on in the civil rights movements, a lot of these folks were young. But I think we also have to take into account who those students are. If we're talking about a lot of the students that were at the sit-ins, those weren't the students that were going to be trying to play football, if we want to have that conversation, right? I think you have to consider who is what to what community and what they serve as far as like the different roles that they have. I think, unfortunately, with a lot of our young people, there's also an attack on them intellectually. We're in the era of red pill, podcast bro, anti-intellectualism, I hate the phrase woke now, but all anti-woke. Well, there's literally an effort to dumb down this generation and make them think that nothing is as bad as it seems and water it all down. And in addition to that, this is a group that is bombarded by distractions. Every generation has their distractions, but they have an overabundance, right? Because think of like, I'll speak, I'm 38 in August, right? When I was 16, 17, I wasn't on any social media. I'd be on the music blogs every now and then, but that meant you had to go sit at a computer and log in and sit and scroll. You weren't going to do that all night and day. You might spend 30, 40 minutes and you're going to go back out with your friends. There was no Twitter. There was no Instagram. There was no Snapchat. There was no TikTok. There was no, what else? There's no Threads, no Blue Sky, no, what else are they on? Everybody's on. Like, that wasn't a thing. We could go out and enjoy ourselves and not have to be self-conscious about somebody recording us because we didn't even have smartphones yet. And so I just think things are a bit different, where I think it's harder to lock in this era if you're young and impressionable, because there's so many options of things that you could give your attention to instead. Let's see. Let's see. Somebody said we need collective semi-secret actions. No cookout invites. The cookout is on pause anyway. I don't know how people would still be out here setting the grill right now. I mean, I'm all about nobody stealing my joy, but I don't want to get too locked into the good times, right? Let's see. Somebody said all cards are on the table. You can't use age as an excuse either. It's not using age, but in the same realm. Like I'm trying to say, a 17-year-old is just, some of them are actually in the same kind of space that some of us in this live are in right now, but a lot of them haven't been introduced to a lot of concepts. I told you when I got to Howard, I was a fish out of water. I didn't know what I didn't know. So if you were to tell 17-year-old me, Well, I wanted to go to HBCU, so there was that. But like, let's just say I was a better athlete. Let's say I had that track and field scholarship to, I don't know, NYU, right? Would I, if my parent and NYU gave me a full ride, but let's say NYU had some problems and New York had some problems, and so this boycott has been asked of me. Now they're giving me all the money. I get to be in New York City of all places, coming from my small town of wherever. I'm going to be the first one going to college in my family. I'm going to get to do this, and if I'm really good at this track and field, who knows? I might get to go to the Olympics and win gold medals and do the World Championships awards. If I'm already set on being in New York, bags are packed. I've already told my friends goodbye. I'm mapping out the next 2 or 3 months before I lock into the next phase of my life. And then abruptly, it's like, actually, I know you've been talking about NYU since you were, I don't know, 12. And this is all you've ever dreamed about. This was everything. But, there's a lot going on in the world. We need you to be one of the leaders. Can you give up your track dream? Or maybe not give it up, but do it in a different capacity where it may not be what you thought it was going to be. It's going to help other people. You may not get everything that you necessarily wanted, but you'll be a part of a bigger movement. I don't know if at 16 or 17 that would have translated well for me. I probably would have been mad as hell. What do you mean? Right? No. Right? Because again, 16, 17, you're not locked into the concept of community yet. You're still young. You're impressionable. You want to live and have your experiences and stuff. And that's how every teen should be. And in reality, only Black kids got to deal with this. In all reality, we're the only demographic that never gets the luxury to just live. We're the only demographic that never gets the luxury to just enjoy what's around us. We can't even enjoy movies, right? I've been seeing the discourse on Is God Is, right? We can't watch a movie without, everything connects to something that relates back to our oppression. And so again, all I am saying is it's a lot of weight to drop on somebody who may not be ready for that conversation or may not have the understanding yet of what is, and they're still on their journey. That's all I'm trying to say. And again, because it was such a last minute ask, my thing is, I feel like can we even, in addition to that, I personally have more smoke for the adults who have chosen to sit out of everything. To me, we could have got so much more done if the adults would have been the adults, right? Again, 90 million people stayed home in November, knowing all this shit was on the table, right? The world that we're now asking these kids to fix indirectly is the world that we created for them. Even though a lot of us, it ain't me, but it's in this generation and the one before and the one before and the one before. And so in the same way, millennials feel some kind of way about older generations who have been able to hoard all the resources and we get scraps. Same thing for the next group, for Gen Alpha and the younger half of Gen Z, right? There's just different things where there were opportunities to do right. So we could have because right now, what our conversation should be, had we not put in Cuckoo Man and let's just say Kamala won, and yeah, she would have been getting the smoke that people would have been giving to her, but the things that we could have been fighting for could have been things beyond what we already had. Now we're going backwards and trying to just recoup stuff that we just had 3 years ago that people were complaining about, that wasn't good enough. And now you're feeling the effects of what this stuff actually really means. And so, yeah, we're kind of in a doozy right now. And so I believe, like you're saying, yeah, all hands on deck for everybody. But at the same time, I don't think it's to kind of put it all on the youth and make it seem like if they don't do this, then the whole world falls apart and it will be all on them. No, we're now just falling into what you call the last resorts because people played around for so many years, right? That's how I see that. Let me see. Somebody said 30 on their gas tank gutted them. Somebody said we need to keep educating the kids, keep teaching them legendary POCs, old and new, and the adults too. The adults right now, to me, carry a lot more power and weight than what the youth have. The youth, to me, they're the ones who they're active, right? They got the energy. They can go out in the streets and fight. But the adults, right now, like I was just saying on the last live, the adults are the ones who are sitting on the money, who are sitting on the networks, who are sitting on the connections, who know who they can call, who understand, well, the ones who are locked in, right? But the adults, right? To me, it's a conversation of cross-generational collaboration. And that's why I'm saying I'm not against what they're pushing. I just think if we're going to do it this way, because I guarantee you this time next year, this won't even be a conversation. They would have moved on to something else. And so My thing is, if this is what we're going to do, lock in, build it, create a foundation where it can only get stronger from this point on. So when we look at a 2036, it doesn't sound like a wild ask to tell an incoming class of athletes that, hey, all y'all tell them schools to kiss your ass because y'all can go here instead, right? That's all I'm saying. Thank you. Victory begins in the, what's that say? I can't see the thing. It doesn't show your full channel, but thank you. I appreciate it. Say keep up the good work. Okay. We're gonna keep going here. Honestly, I'm gonna be completely honest with y'all. This sounds good in theory, but we don't have enough HBCUs. You spoke on that because there's only 21 HBCUs that even have D1 programs to go around. Also, what will happen to the 3- and 4-star athletes at the HBCUs? I mean, if we're talking infrastructure, yeah, I didn't even think about that. I don't know if we even have the infrastructure. Well, and this is why I was saying, even if it means that, you still do the HBCUs, but if you have the option to go to another institution that is not a part of that list of schools to be boycotted, because again, you still got all the schools in the Mid-Atlantic and the North and on the West Coast that are not on this list that students can still go to. But I would say even the students who go to those schools, I feel like they should hold, flames to the feet of those at the schools too, like making sure, did y'all cave when the administration starts saying get rid of this program or no DEI? Like, what really gets me to the fact that, and maybe this is not on the universities, it's more so somewhere else, but even all the lack of pushback when the current administration decided to determine which degrees were professional and which weren't. And literally every degree that all of a sudden became a non-professional degree tends to be all the degrees that Black people tend to get in mass, or if it weren't Black people, that women get in mass. And the reason why that is a part of the conversation is because once you're now listed as a non-professional degree, it plays a role into the limitations of how much you can take out from the federal government when it comes to paying for your graduate school. Because of that, you now have that cap of, I want to say $20,000 per year. Ain't nobody's grad school no $20,000 a year. It's going to be more than that. And so what ends up happening is now you have to take out private loans from private companies or banks or everything else. And now this is when you start paying those interest rates of 11, 13, 14% on a loan, where you could have had something way more affordable if you had a loan through the federal government. Like, so stuff like that. Let's see. Good point, Marlon. So Megan said many Southern universities only desegregated in athletics because they were losing to teams with Black players, called it completely competitive necessity. They never cared to desegregate. They cared to win. Speak on it. Exactly. Where are we at here? I got to scroll a little bit more because I got so many more topics to get to. Somebody said, I'm grateful that colleges started recruiting me in 7th grade. Went to Dream Jamboree in Atlanta in the 80s and met my recruiters. They stayed engaged with me through my school years. All right. Thank you, the Kids Pajamas. Thank you for all you do for the kids, Calvin. Yes, we love the kids. Somebody said, I was lucky. I was surrounded by adults who made their business to make sure me and my siblings and all of their kids / teens were involved. Very proud of my parents and godparents. And I'll say too, we have a lot of people whose parents meant well, but that just wasn't their gift, right? We have parents who thought that as long as they had a good job and were socioeconomically stable, right? That their kids wouldn't have to worry about racism, or their kids wouldn't have to worry about a lot of things. Or if we move our child out to the suburbs, not Black suburbs, but the white suburbs, and get a nice little house in a cul-de-sac, then our kids will have a better life because, yeah, there's a bit more money to go around, but there wasn't the consideration of the environment, the questions when it comes to culture, the lack of just being in a collective space where you're used to seeing yourself every day. One of my favorite reasons for going to Savannah as a child was because that's when I knew I was going to see Black people. Growing up in the town that I grew up in, you were usually the only one. You 3 or 4 of you in the class, right? I remember every year when we would start school, you'd get to your class, you'd pray you had like 3 or 4 of the Black kids in there, right? Because you only see your people at lunch. So for me, coming up, church and the barbershop is when I saw Black folks. But this is why I loved going to Savannah, because I thought it was cool where I'd walk in the store and everybody looked like me. We turned on the radio and we had more than one option to listen to. There were TV channels that I didn't even know existed. I was like, what's a bounce TV? You know, I had never heard of TV One at the time. What? And they play Showtime at the Apollo all day, right? Like all simple things, right? Um, and so yeah, I think there's a lot of folks who their children ended up in spaces and maybe financially things were okay, but culturally things weren't. And people thought you could interchange culture and wealth. And to me, no, that they're not interchangeable. So yeah. Um, Somebody said that part, Calvin, we cannot get back. It's time to reimagine totally what's possible. That's where I'm at. Can we? Because even God, when the Orange Man finally gets out of there, I don't know how he's gonna get out of there, but somebody need to do it. When he's finally out of there, again, yes, there's gonna be the effort to fix a lot of what has been messed up, but I don't want to return to what was before he got in there because times even they weren't that great, right? They were cool. I remember sometimes I'd be getting mad at my mama because she don't be understanding like how frustrated I am at this age dealing with what we got to deal with. Because I'm like, when I think about the fact that I make 4 times what my parents made together when I was their age, but I am not living the life that they got to live at my age. Like they had money to do everything, right? And I'm like, dang, you're tired. You like you got to have 3 side hustles and still work your 9 to 5. And I'm like, Mom, you don't get it. We be tired. Like every person who's probably in our age, we're all tired, right? Exhausted, and you just got to keep going. And then you wake up and it's some more nonsense the next day. And then you mentally tell yourself it is what it is. You go to sleep and start the next day. And then there's some more nonsense you got to deal with. I was like, Mama, you don't get it. Even the idea of buying a house, like, Mom, y'all bought our first house for $87,000. And even when you incorporate inflation, it's like 190K today. The houses that I want to buy in this area are all like $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. And they're not even big houses. They don't have yards, right? They're like the brownstones, and you're connected to your neighbor. So even if you want to blast your music, you got to be considerate of them. You don't get it, but it's all right. Okay. Let's see where we're at. What up, Nan? Do you think the NAACP should have met behind the scenes with athletes at several universities via these universities and NAACP chapters before announcing athletes shouldn't play? See, I don't know how the rollout went. I just saw this story from a day or two ago, and I maybe there were meetings. I have no idea. Maybe there's more. And again, I'm sure there's representatives that will find me and send an email and correct anything I have wrong and say, this is how we did it. Which please do. Like, give me the scoop how this went down. I don't know. But like I said, I like where they're going with it. I just think the rollout might need a few twitches. That's all I'm saying. Somebody said we got comfortable, or we got too comfortable after small successes. A lot of Black people thought we had allies because of those 2020 protests. Then all it took was somebody to take a knee, and the protests were over. Okay, I'm almost at the bottom of my chat, so I'll let you know. Then we get to the real time pieces. Thank you for clarifying the college sports boycott. No problem, Rick Ware. Thank you. Belize Gal said, bounce TV. Now, Calvin, you took it way back. No, when I tell you, I used to be in shock when I would get to Georgia. Even the commercials were different. I think I told the story before. I remember when we got back from Italy. It was summer '99. Remember Domino's introduced the heat wave bag? They used to have this commercial. It was the most lit little R&B hip hop commercial. Domino's heat wave bag. Like it used to pop. And I was like, y'all got commercials like that? Because when I get back home, it's like at Domino's, deliver your pizza at home. Like that's what I grew up on. So now I'm watching and they with the pizza boxes. Wait, this is what y'all get over here? Oh, okay. So I used to be excited to go to Georgia because I knew we were getting all the good stuff. They didn't even they don't even have sweet tea in my little town unless you went to, well, they got Famous Dave out there now. So other than Famous Dave, sweet tea was foreign. So I used to be excited to just go to any spot, whether it was Checkers or Crystal or something like that, just to get a sweet tea. Simple things that you don't even think about. Anyway, Someone said, as a resident baby boomer and grandmother of 10, I love that for you. Come on, 10 grandkids. I know you are loved on every day. I'm so sorry that this world we're leaving. I'm so sorry this is the world we're leaving y'all to fix. It'll get fixed. We're going to figure it out. So we'll figure it out. Deep thoughts and upgrades. Raising both hands and feet. Preach, Calvin. Our age group is tired. And I'm one of those where my family thought putting you in a white space made opportunities better, but I suffered. And it's just, so many of us were brought up to think you just had to work hard and get that good job and all would be well. Even my parents, as much as I loved them, and I've told this story before, like my parents never had the talk with me about what happens if you ever get pulled over by the police. So then when I got pulled over by the police and didn't know what to do, I got met with a gun in my face, right? I'm trying to go in my glove box because I'm like, well, let me have my insurance card ready. So, when they get to the window, I'll have the driver's license and the proof of insurance just ready to go. So I'm just in this glove box, just digging. What is this thing? Because this is when we still had the paper cards, and I got all kind of junk in the glove box. I know it's in here. Just digging. And I turn around, and I'm staring at the barrel of a gun because the window was already down. And he's telling me, you do anything stupid, I'll blow your effing brains out. And what? You don't even know what to say. What? Totally oblivious. And I think my parents meant well, but I think they thought that wasn't something I was going to have to worry about in the kind of town that we lived in. Which I laugh at that now, like, really? But, or maybe they thought it was just some common knowledge I was supposed to already know. But things like that, where thank God I didn't sneeze. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. I would have been hashtags weren't even out yet. It was still called $. But yeah, I think there's so many who feel that they've got to put their children into some of these spaces. Now, my parents didn't do that on purpose. They were military. We just happened to live by where they were stationed. That's why we ended up in the town we were in. My family's not rooted in Washington State. As a matter of fact, none of us live there anymore. Everybody went back to where their base is, right? My mom's people are Georgia. My dad's is California by way of Mississippi, and the DMV. So there's that. Okay, I'm at the very bottom of the chat, so I'll give it 3 minutes, and then we got to get to the next story. So get in whatever you want to get in real time while I'm actually looking at the very bottom of the chat. Somebody said, no, sweet tea, where did you grow up? I grew up in this town called Spanaway, Washington. Actually, let me go to Google and pull up an image here so y'all can see exactly what I'm talking about. It's a military, it's kind of like a suburb of Tacoma, Washington. And it's, let's see, because it's right by Joint Base Lewis McChord. So a lot of people moved there because of the military. Dang, we ain't even got no like lit pictures I can show you because we don't even have like a downtown or nothing. It's just houses and trees. This should do it. All right, well, we'll do this one. But no, literally, this is the kind of area I grew up in. This is what I remember seeing every day. Trees and houses. More trees, more houses. Spanaway, it's a nice little area and everything, but there's not really a lot going on here. So that was my childhood. Okay, somebody said, when's the next ATL meetup? See, you should have went to my show last year in ATL. No, I was kidding. I don't know yet. I don't have an answer for that, but give me a minute. I got to do something for DC too, because I haven't done anything for DC, and people are like, how do you do New York, Jamaica, and Atlanta, and you don't even do your own city? Somebody said, so the suburbs, it's like the suburbs, but like the rural suburbs too. Like Tacoma was the closest city. Seattle was about 50 minutes away. There were horses nearby. Like if people had farms. If you follow the podcast, I tell you the story about when we had to stay with the guy that had the mushroom farm for 9 days. Anyway, when am I coming to Chicago? It's funny. I'll actually be there next. Is that next week? When am I in Chicago? In 2 weeks. I'm on a project, so yeah, I'll be in Chicago literally in 2 weeks. Actually, I'm never home. Like I'm in New York, I think next week. Okay. Somebody says Spanaway looked like the 6. No wonder Calvin was trying to sneak out with the broke down car. Exactly. If you didn't have a car, there's nothing to do. There was no city bus, so you couldn't like get on the bus and get to the city. There's a bus now that stops at the Walmart, but there was a period where Walmart wasn't there. Okay, all we had was it was Kmart. There was a Mexican restaurant called Hidalgo or something like that. The pet store, Dairy Queen, the gas station, the deli. That was the town. There was a store called Fashion Bug and Factory to You. And yeah, that was it. All right, I have to move on, guys, because we have some other stories, but this has been a great chat so far. Okay, let's get into some more hateration, shall we? Because folks just have it out for us, and I don't understand why. But it is what it is, and I can't wait to drag this lady. So let's go to this story here, all right? Because since for some reason, and this is why I'm saying, let's not even rebuild to what we're going to have to just rebuild to something else. Justice Department. Let me make sure y'all can see my screen. Yes. Okay. Justice Department accuses Yale Medical School of illegally using race in admissions. Yes, because so many of us are at Yale. The Justice Department on Thursday accused Yale University of illegally considering race in admissions to its medical school, the second institution to face discrimination allegations by the federal agency this month. In a letter to a lawyer for Yale, Harmeet Dillian, we're going to come back to her, Assistant Attorney General, and I don't even know if I said her name right, but it don't matter in this instance. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights said the DOJ investigation found that Black and Hispanic students have a much higher chance of admission to medical school than white or Asian students, despite having lower grade point averages and lower test scores. Yale has continued its race-based admissions program despite the Supreme Court and public's clear mandate for reform, Dillian said in a statement. This department will continue to shed light on these illegal practices and demand that institutions of higher education comply with federal law. The university replied in a statement that its School of Medicine is confident in the rigorous admissions process we follow and will review the Justice Department's letter. The students admitted to Yale School of Medicine demonstrate exceptional academic achievement and personal commitment. Its program of medical education encourages curiosity and critical thinking, and its graduates go on to become leaders in clinical care research and public service, the school said. Since President Donald Trump's return to office last year, his administration has been putting on universities to stop using race as the basis for admission. And that right there alone should tell you not to play sports for them, which conservatives view as illegal discrimination. And a U.S. court decision in 2023 banned use of affirmative action in college admissions in cases involving Harvard and University of North Carolina. Last week, the Justice Department notified the University of California, Los Angeles that its medical school illegally considered race in admissions. In the letter to Yale, Dillian alleged that New Haven, Connecticut school was violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibiting discrimination, and said the DOJ is seeking to enter into voluntary resolution agreement with the university. She also noted in a letter that the agency has the authority to take the school to court to enforce Title VI if it cannot obtain compliance through voluntary means. I'm going to stop there because I get to my main point. So before we even go there, I would like to talk numbers first. And do I have that on here? Let's do this first of all. Let's do some numbers here. Y'all know I like some good numbers. All right, so this is a document that showcases every medical school in the United States, right? And so we're going to go to Yale, and what it does is it shows by race, right? So let's go to Yale, way down here. Yale. Where y'all at? Let's get to the Y's. Why? All right. Wait a minute. Yeah, where did you go? Now I was just looking at you. Hold on. Yale and move somewhere else. Give me a minute. Oh, Yale tripping. They must have categorized this by Ivy League and then everybody else. Yale, if you don't... okay, here we go. Here's Yale, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So when we are talking... let's see. Damn, I forgot the category. So interesting, right? Because she said discrimination against whites and Asians. And all right, so this is the Asian box. This is the black box. Cool. Let's get to Yale. There are 553 students in this medical program. Also, shout out to who found this information? Jeff Anderson. I saw you post this, and that's where I found the information. All right. So of the 553 students across all 4 classes that are there, 44 of the students are Black. 44, right? That means about 10 students per class. 44 out of 553. When we talk about the Asians, right? 157. That means about 40 per class. If we're talking white, 175. So my question becomes, you already have majority stake in attendance at this university. You're already the majority population, and you're still pressed about a fraction of who's attending the school. Because here's the thing, all right? Black folks are about 14% of the U.S. population. They're 7% of the enrollees at the school, meaning that even the numbers that they have represented in the school don't represent the amount of numbers that they exist within the population. However, if we're talking the Asian population, All right. They're 7% of the population, but 28% of the population at Yale. So it's kind of like the level of pressed, right? Because again, even the bare minimum is too much for people that want to harp on your own oppression. Now, I want to go a little bit further because it's funny how this stuff seems to work every time. It's the same usual suspects. So let's do this. Let's get to this person who is leading this. All right. So Harmeet Dhillon. Somebody who benefits from affirmative action because she is Indian. And she went to undergrad back in '89, just as these programs were being rolled out. And this is one of the reasons why she got to go to the university or Virginia Law or whatever and go to Dartmouth. But anyway, so she's from India. She went to Dartmouth and was an editor for the Dartmouth Review. And she used her position to push a lot of right-wing conservative pieces when it came to that publication. She ended up getting caught in some controversy because she likened the university's president to Adolf Hitler because she felt that the school was too disciplinary against conservative students. Because long story short, some of the students wanted to do some racist stuff and the school pushed back. So all of a sudden, she ended up calling those policies the Holocaust and started calling the president, who actually was Jewish, by the way, calling him Adolf Hitler, right? And she did pieces on what she called liberal fascism because, again, I'm going to get to what I want to say in a second, right? And then she ended up going to Virginia School of Law. And then once she became a lawyer, she sued UC Berkeley for canceling an Ann Coulter appearance. It was over safety reasons, but she sued because Ann Coulter couldn't do one of her speeches. Do we remember Ann Coulter? Do I need to go to the clip? I believe we do. Let's pull in Ann Coulter because we might see something familiar here. So let me just get her clip out here. Give me one sec. And yeah, there you go. Let's while we're at it, while we're talking about these different groups here. So let's go to Ann, who she decided she was going to fight over. Ann, take it away. Take it away, Ann. Thank you.
You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American Black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agree with many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
Gee. He's an Indian just like you. What's her name again? Harmeet Vivek. Both of y'all are Indian. Ann Coulter told Vivek, and we did a video on this a while ago, that no matter how great he was as a politician and how much she agreed with him, she would never vote for him because he wasn't Indian. Not just that he was Indian, but he was an Indian. The idea of otherizing and ensuring that he understands that he is not like her. So this very same white woman who told somebody who comes from the very country in which you come from that he is not good enough, you break your neck to go and fight and defend this woman who would do exactly the same thing to you. But like I said before, there are many people who come here to be white. And when I say come here to be white, it's the idea of the American dream and success. And they're willing to do it by any means necessary, even if that means aligning with anti-Blackness, even if that means aligning with white nationalism, even if that means being the model minority, even if that means being just the scum of the earth, if it appeases the demographic in which you want to be respected by, which is exactly how she's been moving. So anyway, she later becomes Trump's legal advisor during the 2020 lawsuits around what he thought was the stolen election. And remember, that's rooted in, again, the attack on Black voters. Once Georgia votes came in and it came in from those districts, all of a sudden here comes voter fraud. Black voters voted and pushed Joe and Kamala to the edge and got Ossoff in there as well. And then later Warnock. And the conversation became those votes were invalid. And she spearheaded part of those 60 plus lawsuits to invalidate the Black vote and overturn them. That's how she's moving, right? She's also represented Tucker Carlson. Oh, let me put her picture back up so y'all can keep looking at her. Right? Make sure y'all remember this face because you got to know who's working against you sometimes. Put that face right back up there. All right. She's also, like I said, represented Tucker Carlson in his gender discrimination lawsuit that was filed by Abby Grossberg with Fox News. So again, now there's the woman who's claiming that she's being sexually harassed and discriminated against because of her gender. And even in this moment, as a woman, she still's like, nope, don't care, right? And then what's interesting, she got a taste of her own medicine because she did the Saint Prayer at the GOP convention. And again, they weren't having it because that wasn't a Christian prayer. And, they think saints and everybody else, they think everybody's Muslim. So Then she got all this smoke and blowback, and people like Nick Fuentes chewed her out. All the white nationalist, red pill, alpha bro folks that hide in the basement and talk all that trash but are scared to leave the house. They let her have it and reminded her that she is not one of them, right? And then eventually, Trump made her the assistant attorney general, not the attorney, but the assistant, because you're never going to get to go to that next position. There's always going to be a limitation in how far they're going to let you go, right? Because tokens get spent. So she's now the assistant attorney general for the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. And her main focus has been gutting DEI, the very thing she benefits from. So the reality is they don't think we're supposed to be in any of these spaces. When we're talking med school, they don't want us in any of it, right? And, for me, and what I keep finding interesting with people like her that come from these communities and stuff, where they try to make this claim that because Black people are in these programs, there's some reason that somebody else has been pushed out. The reality is this. One, these universities have a threshold or a standard of measurement that is there to determine whether somebody or not is qualified. If they're qualified, they get in. Now, there are some people who, listen, if it says you need a 3.75 to get in, yeah, are you going to have people who might have a 4.0? Sure. But that's also the only thing they could offer with great scores and great grades. But outside of that, they are a bland, boring student with no personality. They don't contribute anything. They're not a member of any clubs. Universities want notable alumni. And that's why a lot of times when some of these groups constantly go after Black folks because, I had a 4.6 weighted GPA and I had a 1572 on the SAT, but I didn't get into any of my Ivy League schools because for some reason I think I'm supposed to get into all Ivy League just because I'm a part of the Asian community or I'm this or I'm that and nobody else should get in except for me. I didn't do anything else that was notable. I'm not a part of any clubs. All I know how to do is be a student. I don't have a personality. I don't have anything that contributes to the legacy of the school. And I'm just a number, which is why the school passed on me and chose that other Black student that had a high score, that had a high GPA, but they also were a part of student government. They also were a part of some kind of community organization. They also have a backstory. They also didn't get the luxury of having these tutors to make sure that they could ace the SAT because maybe they came out of a school district that doesn't even have the kind of resources that this student had and so on and so forth. And because this student has a more well-rounded story, we know that they will do a better job of representing our university in the long run because they'll not only be more appreciative of their journey and their experiences, but we know what this means to them as opposed to people who are going with the woodworks and going with the wind just because that's all they've ever been taught. Play with somebody else. All I'll say is remember that tokens get spent. Y'all, especially those who come here and then latch onto every anti-Black thing, because why are you worried about what we got going? The thing that gets me, you immigrated here. And then rather than falling into a space where you do your thing and you thrive and be great and make sure your family's good, you worried about what I'm doing. I don't even know who you are. What you doing? Why are you worried about the 44 Black students in this Yale program when they're only 7% of the program? Make it make sense. And the other thing is this, a lot of these people who are moving in this direction, there's an assumption that they thought, well, okay, because we gutted affirmative action, Black enrollment was supposed to drop. It's not dropping in a lot of these places. And so it's baffling them because they really thought that affirmative action, they really thought all of us were just getting into these programs just because we were Black. No, we still had to do twice as much work. We had to do everything, right? But they don't understand that. They just have this mindset of thinking that they are the default of greatness. And this also includes people who are white adjacent or think that they're white adjacent. Same mindsets that they have, where they think they're supposed to just get in by default because of who they are. And so when they see somebody else that they don't think belongs, they assume that they did something wrong to get in there, or they assume that they did something faulty that disqualifies them, and they go after them. Because why are you worried about them 44 students? 44 students out of 553. Meanwhile, let's talk about which group of people got caught in that big old SAT scandal cheating rank, or the cheating scandal. Right? It wasn't us. But I know which two groups of people it was. Some of them came from wealthy white families where moms off Full House were a part of the scameration. And others were a part of that very same community that, what's this girl's name again? I keep getting this girl's name wrong. What's your name again, lady? Harmeet. A whole lot of folks from Harmeet's collective that were a part of the cheating scandal, but y'all worried about us. It's all right. Tokens get spent. Just remember, at some point, once you do all the dirty work, you're next in line. You're just speeding up the process. So y'all can keep coming after us all y'all want. We thrive either way. Either way. We're built for it. I don't think we should always have to live in a space where we got to fight for our whole lives all the time. But because everybody's just always been after us, we're always on ready. Y'all are not, which is why you're out here erasing your identity and trying to be a white woman, and it's never going to happen. Anyway, let me get to the other piece of nonsense. Because again, they when I say there are spaces they don't want us in. All right, let's get to this one here. Find a black doctor directory sued for discriminating against physicians based on race. A conservative legal group sued a physician directory on Tuesday, accusing the website Find a Black Doctor of illegally discriminating against physicians by limiting listings to black medical professionals. The suit filed on Tuesday in Manhattan federal court by Do No Harm, and Colorado dermatologist Dr. Travis Morrell targets the site and its founder, New York dermatologist Dr. Dina Strachan. The complaint alleges the directory openly excludes non-black physicians by restricting eligibility to black physicians and dentists in active clinical practice. This is the thing right here, right? The plaintiffs accuse the site of promoting racial concordance, the idea that patients receive better care from doctors of the same race. They do. Find a Doctor markets itself as a directory designed to improve healthcare in black community by connecting patients with black physicians. According to the lawsuit, doctors seeking things must submit personal and professional information, agree to terms of use, and allow directly to retain and publish their ideas. Do Not Harm, a nonprofit organization that says more than 50,000 members, says it has more than 50,000 members, claims the directory harms physicians excluded because they are not black. Only black physicians and dentists are eligible, the complaint states. Other races cannot be listed or meaningfully apply. The post comment from Strachan. Morrell, a dermatologist and dermapathologist based in Grand Junction, Colorado, says he treats patients of all races. Do not go to him, y'all, including many black patients, and I hope they've all stopped going. The complaint says Morrell applied to join the directory on December 23rd of 2025, but never received a response. I'm going to stop there because I'll read this a little bit. I'm just getting annoyed. It's so stupid. After following up by email months later, he again encountered only silence, according to the lawsuit. The suit claims Morrell's application was constructively rejected because he is white. The complaint notes the directory currently lists only 3 doctors in Colorado and no dermatologists in the state. The lawsuit also attached statements on the website encouraging black men to seek primary care or black primary care doctors. The plaintiffs argue the directory relies on harmful, offensive, and racist stereotypes and says its claims about race and healthcare outcomes are unsupported and false. Do No Harm and Morrell are seeking a court order barring the directory from considering race in its application process and are requiring it to accept Morrell's application. The suit also seeks compensatory and punitive damages. When I tell you, they are so pressed. Everything we do, they feel that they must be a part of. Anything that we do with our own agency offends them because they feel that they're supposed to control everything that we have going. To the point where, because I want to say this, the reason black people prefer to have black doctors is because black doctors, in addition, understand that physically there are things that are somewhat different about our health. Even when we're talking about, perfect example, let's just say hair texture. This isn't really with doctors, but there's a reason why there are products aimed at black hair versus other hair types, right? Because our hair just moves a little bit differently. So you sometimes have to correlate things that fit within the respective realms of where somebody fits in. So when it comes to healthcare and everything like that, we know what happens with black women and the maternity rates, when it's mortality rates when it comes to maternal health. We know that there's a discrepancy to the point where people are still trying to research the findings. So there are differences that affect us differently. We know that even what my father died from, which was scleroderma, that is a condition that mostly affects black women. He ended up catching it somehow, but it's not really something that really has a massive abundance in other populations. Same thing with something like a sickle cell, which tends to be a lot more common in black populations. So there's all of these different things where a lot of times the idea of getting a physician or a doctor that comes from your same experience, speaks your same language, understands the kind of life that you live, understands the kind of cuisine that you eat, understands high blood pressure running through the fat, understands all that, right? How many times have we seen stories where black people go to a hospital, they tell the doctor, I'm in pain because of this, and they get dismissed, mainly because there's a lot of doctors who are not black, who still can't even cognitively get out of that headspace where they assume that black people are these beings that have a special kind of strength where we can tolerate more pain. right? Well, we're just being dramatic. How many times have we seen a story where a Black person died at a hospital because they didn't get the right care, because nobody took them seriously? How many times do we keep seeing that? And so, yes, Black people prefer to be amongst their own in the same way that white folks do. So I don't know why every time Black people get a piece of something, the bare minimum. That website said there was only about 3 people on that website in the state of Colorado, and you're that pressed. And I know you're pressed because, again, find Black doctors. What were you doing looking at up in the first place? You were actively looking for something. Let me put your picture up too while I'm at it. I got to see you while I drag you. Where's he at? Let me put that article back. I'm gonna tack on that forehead. Where's he at? Yeah, get back to your ass. All right, where's he at? Right here. Y'all just keep looking at him. All right. Anyway, so again, that conversation that I said where it's punitive entitlement. They think they're entitled to everything. And when they don't get something, they want everybody else to suffer. They will shut a whole thing down if they can't be included because they think they're supposed to be included in everything, right? And it's also interesting because he's also approaching this from the presumption that a Black doctor wouldn't serve a white person. Actually, my friend, well, no, not my friend, my enemy here. You are making a presumption based on how you move and how you operate, right? That ain't how we move. That's what you think is going to happen because that's how you move. That's because you don't want to serve them Black folks that come to your office, right? The assumption of assuming that a Black doctor would turn somebody down because they're not Black. No, that's how y'all operate. See, we move in a space of collective and community, and we just like to be an extra resource to those in our community who need that extra support. It doesn't mean that in these moments where we're working in our professional fields that all of a sudden it's F for everybody else, because legally we can't do that. But you guys seem to find a way to do it all the time. You did it during Jim Crow. It's to the point where, like I said in the last live, when it comes to any element of progress, when it comes to civil rights, white people had to be dragged into compliance. That's how we ended up getting the Civil Rights Act, right? Which y'all still are trying to find a way to dismantle that. And even then, you didn't comply right away. This reminds me, we did a video on this years ago, maybe like 10, 11 years ago. Remember Townsend University in Maryland, where they had the white student union, right? And that's another conversation, but they had this white student union that they had created because they were claiming that there were all these attacks on the white women on the campus, right? And so it ends up becoming this group. And I found it so interesting because I always thought, why would you need a white student union at a majority white school? I look at that like if you had hands, right? 10% of the world is left-handed like I am, and everybody else is right-handed. It would be like if all the right hands, all the 90% of the world were so mad about this 10% existing that they feel that they are oppressed because this 10% got a little bit of attention. So now as the right, we must do what we have to do to shut this down because this is discrimination, right power. Like, that's what it looks like to me. Like, y'all sound crazy, right? And even then with the white student union, it wasn't even a thing of, oh, well, let's celebrate our European this. Oh, let's have Polish Heritage Day or Germanist. No, their idea of a white student union was policing Black students and harassing them and following them around the campus. That's what it was. So it's kind of like y'all just, you look for something, right? You're a whole doctor. You're going to always have work. So the idea of making it seem like this is somehow affecting your business is totally a lie, right? Wasting all your time worried about Black folks. But, you know, let me get back to this picture because I'm going to zoom in because now you deserve a lashing because let's get to this head here. You need to go ahead, Mr. Like, first of all, you should have been worried about this little patch right here because it ain't even. It's only on one side of the head. Just go ahead and shave everything off, Mr. Clean. Like, I don't get it. And let me tell you how petty I am. I went and found where he worked at. Bam. Mountain West Dermatology. So, for those of you in Colorado, I suggest not going there, or if you want to be petty like I am, and just to make sure you have the right version with the right address. Where's that address at? Where's that address? 2655 Little Bookcliff Drive, Grand Junction. Make sure you got the right one. Go ahead and give them 1 star. Let them know that they got people working over there that's trying to stop the progress of other groups of people who are minding their business. I was going to put my star on here, but when I click it, it's going to have my full government name, so I got to do it a little bit later. But they're going to get that 1 star from me. I'm going to leave a nasty review. I'm going to leave a real nasty one, and I'm going to refer him to a barber that can get that waxed and taken care of. Worried about what we doing, and you over here looking like this. You got bigger fish to fry. I wonder how old he is. I bet you we're the same age. I bet you he's only like 5 years older than me. Whatever. Thin dog hair, and you worried about us. Anyway. 1 star, ladies and gentlemen. 1 star. All right, I'm gonna take a break and read some of the chat, and then we're gonna go from there. Somebody said leave 2 stars, they're harder to remove. Okay, let me scroll up a little bit with this chat here. Let's see. Somebody said, is she not succeeding in Yale? Why is she doing this? She don't even go to Yale. She is the assistant attorney general for the Department of Justice, and she's supposed to be focused on civil rights. They're actively just looking for any space where we exist. Like, remember that clip when they were doing the deposition with the people that were enforcing Doge, and these are like random white kids that are like 20 and 21 years old, and they couldn't explain what DEI was. They just knew to go after everything that said black. That's what this is. That's all it is. A mess. And this is why it's hard for me to even get with the whole idea of black and brown coalition, because the Browns, y'all be on some nonsense. Y'all don't know what y'all want. Like, y'all will be in the way the whole time, and then something finally happens to y'all, and then y'all want us to come rally behind y'all. And then every now and then we do it, and then we get bit in the behind right after. Like, I pressed. Every time I turn around, they worry about what we got going. Every time. And, I know I be cooking them on this live, but I don't wake up thinking about all these other groups that are worried about us. Like, I wake up, I put on my music. Like this morning, it was Johnny Taylor. Who's making love to your old lady while you was out making love? And Junior Walker, Shotgun. Like, I was having a great time this morning. Just having having a ball. Just good time. Have my little coffee. Music was hitting. And then, and don't let you like the outfit that you got on. Look, I did, even with the gym, like, I be looking good in my work clothes. I ain't gonna lie. So, I'm feeling good. I am not worried about everybody else, right? I don't care what y'all are doing. I'm not pressed. I mean, I have to care because most of the stuff that y'all are actually doing is something that's detrimental to me. But most of the time, I ain't thinking about y'all. But y'all seem to be obsessed with us. Any space that we occupy, here y'all come. Like, God. It's like when you got like a snack wrapper, and as soon as you start rattling the bag, here comes your dog. Just every time here comes the dog, and they just stare, just all in the mix, right? That's how y'all be moving. It's weird. Like, y'all need to find something to do, and not us. Y'all call the ant culture the scarecrow. Somebody said they ain't learned nothing from the natives. The colonized mind is a terrible thing to waste. And I wish so many could get out of it. It's like, y'all don't even realize they're laughing in your face too. You think you're helping them out. And I feel like a lot of them learn it, but they're so far in, they refuse to just acknowledge it because they don't want to look stupid. So they'll just keep doubling down, right? I'm like, I couldn't imagine signing up to be stupid on purpose. I couldn't imagine, right? Who? No way. All right. Let's see. Y'all on here going off. And then, legacy admission. See, that's the thank you, Sunshine Shorty. That's the other piece you really need to talk about. That same demographic that got with Edward Bloom and spent all that time trying to fight affirmative action because they thought we took all their seats, when really the seats you should have been mad about were all those white legacy students who weren't qualified, but because they either had family that already went to the university years before, or they donated or had some kind of connections financially, a lot of those students got in, got to skate, did the bare minimum. That's who your beef should have been with, but instead you worried about us, right? And what makes it even funnier is they're still discriminating against y'all. After all of that, you gained nothing. You made it worse for yourself because, oh my God. I need some people in our collective to be just as petty and start just throwing lawsuits out with everything. For every time there's somebody that attacks a fearless fund or a fine black doctors or whatever else we got, go and find their stuff, because their stuff is floating around too. Go and find this. So some of us gonna have to learn some new languages, right? Some of y'all gonna have to learn Farsis, and well, maybe not Farsis. Iran ain't bothering nobody. They doing their own thing. But so we're gonna have to learn some new languages around here and start learning how to read what they got and going on their websites, so we can start suing too. Because I decided what do I want to do? I don't know, but I'm gonna do something. And it's going to be something that ain't a part of my community. It's going to be part of somebody else's, and I'm assuming they don't let me do it. I'm going to go and try to get one of them jobs. You know what? I'm going to move back to my home state, and I'm going to go to one of them businesses on South Tacoma Way that got all the signs in Korean, and I'm going to go over there and try to get a job. And when they say no, we need no help. Okay, lawsuit. I'm gonna own the whole strip, all of it. It's gonna be the Korean signs. It's gonna be my picture above the words, looking. Cause damn it, leave us alone. It's over. Oh God. All right. Somebody said black paint isn't taken seriously. We need black doctors. Exactly. Yeah, these doctors be playing. Oh, let me tell you, my mom get mad every time she think about this. When she was pregnant with me, and it was time for the delivery, right? I was born in Madigan Army Hospital, and at the time, it was going through a renovation. Like it's like this big giant building now, but back then it was a bunch of like portables and stuff because they were doing construction. And so she was supposed to get her epidural. They weren't paying attention, and they gave it to the other lady because they were sharing rooms. So the other lady who didn't actually want one, she was gonna go natural. She got my mom's epidural, and my mom was sitting there waiting, like, okay, the pain ain't stopping. Where is the when does the juice kick in? And then they realized they didn't give my mom the epidural. And by then it was too late. I had already started crowning and everything. Like, oh, we're so sorry. You have to just start pushing. And my mom was so mad because she had to push, not to be graphic, but like sometimes when women are pushing, sometimes there's that tear. And so when I tell you she was hot, pissed off, and it ain't like I had the smallest head. You see all this head here. I ain't had the smallest head. And I came out with a head full of hair just like this too. Maybe not this much, but she was so pissed. And she said the nurse stole her house shoes. She had these little slippers in there. And yeah, when she woke up, the slippers were gone. So somebody stole her shoes too. So yeah, every time she tells the story of my birth, it's not like a happy-go-lucky story. She'd be mad all about it. Even though I got smoked for them too, because then my dad got the wrong message and thought I was supposed to be a girl. So my very first baby picture, I'm wearing a Minnie Mouse shirt. I'm like, y'all just see, I was progressive back then. I've always been always been open-minded. Anyway, let's see here. Oh, I can't wait to get to this one. Let me read a few more comments, and then I can't wait to get to Daniel Cameron. I'm having too much fun on this live. Roxas 1802 said, another Let's Chat so soon. Yeah, it was because we only covered 2 topics on the last one, and I felt like even though there was so much to be said in those 2, I was like, there's so much also going on. So I said I would do another one this week just to try to make sure we're covering everything. You know what I mean? Let's see. Oh wow! Somebody said there was a. This is don't shadow ban me, YouTube. There was a black woman in Kansas City that was denied care for her seizures by a hospital. A good Samaritan found her in a puddle on the street, seizing, and stayed with her until the EMTs came. And hopefully they didn't take her right back to the same hospital. Man. Somebody said, why can't they leave us alone? My God. No, because everything we do, they got to be up in it. In everything. Somebody said those depositions were pitiful. Yes, those depositions, they couldn't answer anything. They were just clueless. And it's like, you all had a hand in the firing of hundreds of thousands of federal employees, and you can't explain why they were fired. You can't explain the reasoning as to why they were targeted. You can't explain the reasoning as to why their firing was going to make the federal government some element of bet. Like, you couldn't do anything. It just, the incompetence was on full display. I was like, criminal charges, somebody, please. My God. Okay, we gotta keep going. Somebody said, I said those Craigslist ads, all in Chinese for apartments, they're being discriminatory. Like, there's all kind of stuff going. But for some, it's interesting that I feel that Black people collectively have always been very inclusive in everything that we do, even when it comes to business and stuff. And so it's interesting that they still target things that we have going because they want to say that we're being discriminatory, when in reality, it's usually every other group that's discriminatory towards us. But okay. Somebody said not the house shoes. Yeah, they took her slippers. She had these little fluffy pink slipper things she was talking about, and she was pissed because she got them while she was in Korea, because or maybe she got them in Germany. She might have been in Germany when she got them, but she was pissed because she couldn't get them nowhere else. Yes. Somebody said Cal was supposed to be Calvisha. Calvinet. I think Calvinet might have made more sense, but all right. Anyway, let's go to a clip that I've been excited to play. Yes. Hold on. Give me a sec. All right. I've been waiting for this moment. Wendy. All right.
Candidate to go down in defeat tonight was Republican Daniel Cameron. The Associated Press.
Hold on. Let's get that sound right. I don't like how that sounds. 1 second. Let's start that back. All right, we're gonna try this without messing this up too much.
For Barr right at 7 o'clock. At one point, the
Okay.
candidate to go down in defeat tonight was Republican Daniel Cameron. The Associated Press calling that race for Barr right at 7 o'clock. At one point, months ago, polls showed Cameron had a commanding lead in the Senate race. Conroy was there as
God
Cameron.
damn. Okay, hold on. My bad.
Some people were still arriving to this venue in LaGrange as the race was called just after 7 o'clock. And now with his second election loss in just 2.5 years, many are left wondering what's next for the former attorney general.
Well, tonight didn't exactly turn out how we wanted it to.
Daniel Cameron appeared on stage with his wife just before 8 o'clock on election night, surrounded by supporters in LaGrange as his campaign came to an end.
It's been a crazy one, but I love you all and so very thankful.
Cameron burst onto the scene in 2019, becoming the first Republican attorney general in Kentucky in decades. He's achieved career and personal highs. In 2020, he got married and also spoke at the Republican National Convention. So after his second straight election loss, he was in the mood to reflect.
I tell people all the time, this is the greatest country on earth. To have opportunities that are based on perseverance, grit, determination, merit, opportunity, this is a pretty amazing place. And I'm glad that I've been able to be a part of this democratic experiment and see democracy at its finest.
As for what's next for Daniel Cameron, he says he's going to be at home more with his wife and 3 young kids, and he's going to look for a job.
Okay, so sorry, I've been waiting for that one. First of all, I wonder if his wife is going to leave him now, because, you know, a lot of times they do these kind of like sham marriages for political clout and gain and the status things, kind of like Tim Scott and his lovely wife as well, right? Yeah, so Tim Scott, get it together, because yeah, she about to lose. Daniel Cameron, the reason I have a lot of beef with this individual, and if you follow me, you know which story I'm going to, right? This is a man, never mind the fact that he is in a party that is saturated in the nonsense that they're saturated in. That ain't even my main beef. But when we go back to that Breonna Taylor, right? He stood in the way of that woman receiving her justice. And when it came to doing what was right in the name of how she was done wrong, instead he chose power. But he chose the wrong kind of power. He chose the kind of power that you become indebted to. And so he lost any element of integrity he ever had, all in the name of trying to appease the very demographic that didn't even vote for him twice. Remember, because he ran for governor too, lost that. And remember, he was a part of the cover-up. He was a part of, as a matter of fact, I know I always got an article ready. Let's just go to that. I've been waiting for this MF here. All right. And remember, he was saying that everything that happened to Breonna Taylor was justified. All right. So here we go. Kentucky attorney. Go back to my link. My thing's not showing. Kentucky Attorney General says some officers were justified in the actions in Breonna Taylor case. The jury has indicted one officer on criminal charges 6 months after Breonna Taylor was fatally shot by police in Kentucky. The jury presented its decision against fired officer Brett Hankinson to a judge in Louisville where the shooting took place. Let me see. At the news conference, Attorney General Daniel Cameron said Hankinson and the 2 officers who entered Taylor's apartment announced themselves before entering the apartment and did not use a no-knock warrant. The fact that he wasn't even there and was going to sit here and try to endorse the lies that have already been refuted a long time ago didn't sit well in my spirit. Anyway, he was a protege. I'm not going to read this whole story, but see, he was a protege of Mitch McConnell, who's also one step from out the door and also one step closer to the casket. And he pretty much built an entire career on, again, being that mouthpiece for white supremacy by being a token, right? And so the thing I'll say is this: when you build your entire career on appeasing your oppressor, once their goal is met, they don't need you anymore, right? And because you also didn't appeal to black voters, you weren't even successful at pulling in that one segment of black voters that do vote Republican, right? And so they're like, we don't need you anymore. And so what happens next is, because you've lost 2 statewide elections, that is the end of your political career in Kentucky. Your party is getting ready to oust and boot you because they know they have no leverage with you because you aren't electable enough for that demographic. And one of the main reasons why you aren't electable enough is because you got this going. See, you thought because you had proximity to this and you married this, that this wasn't going to be too much of a problem for them. But you know what? It is. They don't like you, and they are going to make an example out of you. And unfortunately, you don't even get to come crawling back to this collective, because we remember how you moved with Breonna Taylor and how you were a part of the cover-up, which ended up being a larger investigation into something with a whole gentrification project of getting rid of an entire neighborhood and using the conversation of crime as collateral and then victimizing all them people in them apartments. And you were totally fine with it because you thought that was going to give you your big break, that you could be tough on crime. So F you, good riddance. And that wife is going to leave you if you don't get a job. So you better get it together. You better start selling some Cutco knives. Better start knocking on them doors, right? Heavy competition out there. Idiot. Ugh. Like, my God. Tim Scott next, please. Please, Tim Scott next. All right. The one I want to whack is Byron Donalds, but Florida, I don't know. Florida, y'all might actually put him in, the way y'all moving right now. Anyway, let me go to this clip that has also, actually, I'm gonna come back to that. That's gonna be my sweet revenge for later. So let's get to Orange Man and this $1.8 billion that he's scamming with. All right. Let's see. How do I want to do this? I'm gonna read 2 articles, I think. Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's do that. Oh, Daniel. Daniel thought he was in the bag with it. He was like, I'm not one of those guys. I'm a special kind of Negro. Like, I'm safe. And they didn't feel safe voting for you. They said no. So bad to the point where your election was called as soon as the polls closed. Sometimes they do like it's too close to call. We got to wait a little. No, it was like the polls closed. He lost. He's out. They ain't even, damn. Like Frankie and set it off. You couldn't even wait. Right? Done. Good riddance. Anyway, let's get to, I'm not reading all this. All right. How Trump's $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund works. First, let's just give some backstory. So we remember Trump's tax returns somehow leaked. And Trump felt some kind of way because, remember, he had been lying to us this whole time, saying he couldn't release his tax returns because he was under audit. And once that was done, he would release them. And so we never saw them. But then after he becomes president, they somehow leak. He gets mad. And then he sues the IRS for $10 billion. So he technically sues himself because, again, when the leak took place under his watch, under his government. So he's technically suing himself as far as representing the IRS and the federal government for $10 billion. And then he decided as himself, as the IRS, he's going to settle with himself as the IRS. And he's created this $1.8 billion fund. Really, it's $1,776 million, right? And he's decided that this was going to be a special fund that was going to be called like the anti-weaponization fund, that was going to give money to all the victims of, the discriminatory being targeted by Joe Biden and the federal government, right? That's what's being said here. I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not about to skim through all this. Let me see. How it works. The Attorney General will handpick a 5-member commission that decides who will collect money from the fund, which ends in December 2028. Those decisions can't be appealed or challenged in court. Like, they're just making up stuff. The settlement does not require public disclosure of payouts. Let me tell you exactly what's going to happen right here. Just again, those decisions can't be appealed or challenged in court. The settlement does not require public disclosure of payouts. That right there tells you everything that's going to happen. Trump is not going to give anybody anything because, again, the story is these are going to go to the victims of January 6th. And his definition of victims are the people who couldn't climb the walls and fell and broke their backs and stuff. All the people who went and stormed the Capitol and pooped on Nancy Pelosi's desk and fought the police officers and all that other stuff. Those apparently are the victims. Everybody who was charged for treason, there's going to be a fund for them. And they're supposed to be the ones who get this money. But I guarantee you, not a single one of them will see a dime. Trump will find a way to line it in his pockets, or he'll say some nonsense like, oh, it's going to go into a special escrow account that you'll be able to access in 10 years. It's going to be a part of a Trump bond or something crazy. And the wildest part is our tax dollars are paying for it. The settlement lets the fund spend part of the 1.7 billion on itself, including staff, travel, facilities. The Justice Department and the White House did not answer the Axios question about whether there are any caps on those costs. Who's eligible? Almost anyone alleging weaponization or lawfare can apply, Blanche told a Senate Appropriations Committee Tuesday. That means every black person in America, y'all need to be applying for this money, right? Go on and get your cut too, since all of us at this point, since that's how we're moving. And just make sure you don't check the black box when they ask you what race you are. Let them know that you are a proud American and leave it at that. Blanche refused to comment that people convicted of assaulting Capitol Police would be excluded. I'm not I'm not one of the commissioners setting up the rules. Now all of a sudden they ain't setting up the rules. Now they don't know. They can't answer no questions. Vice President Vance separately said that even Tina Peters, the former Colorado County clerk convicted of a state crime, and Hunter Biden, the son of former president, could be compensated. They lying. Trump's new fund is possible thanks to a judgment fund created by Congress in 1956, so the government could quickly pay off court losses and settlements without voting each time. Initially, payouts were limited to $100,000. That cap was lifted in 1978. Critics have previously warned that it lets administrations spend huge sums with little oversight. The Obama administration's $1.7 billion judgment fund payment to Iran became a major flashpoint in 2016. Let me jump to this other article here. Right. Because then two of the officers who were defending the Capitol have sued to be like, hell no, I got busted upside the head, and we were ordered to stand down as we were getting slapped around. If anybody deserves a check, it should be us and not them. Two police officers who helped defend the U.S. Capitol from an attack by a mob of President Donald Trump supporters sued on Wednesday to block anyone, including January 6, 2021 rioters, from receiving payouts from the new $1.776 billion settlement fund for people who claim to be victims of politically motivated prosecutions. The officers' attorneys filed the federal lawsuit a day after the acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, defended the fund's creation due to a congressional hearing. Blanche, a personal attorney for Trump before joining the Justice Department, wouldn't rule out the possibility that rioters who assaulted police on January 6 would be eligible for fund payouts. The lawsuit claims the government's anti-weaponization fund is an illegal slush fund that Trump will use to finance the insurrectionists and paramilitary groups that commit violence in his name. It describes the fund's creation as the most brazen act of presidential corruption this century and calls for dissolving it. That man got corruption every day. No statute authorizes its creation. The settlement on which it is premised is a corrupt sham, and its design violates the Constitution and federal law, the suit says. I'm going to stop there because I'm not that pressed with this. But again, this man just does anything, and they just keep letting it slide. They let him do everything. And one of the other parts is the IRS is also now permanently banned. Let me rephrase this. Trump and his family now have permanent immunity from the IRS when it comes to tax audits. So again, he's pretty much given himself permission to fraud it up, right? Which is so funny because they spend all their time talking about fraud this and fraud that, and they're the biggest fraudsters out here. Interesting. So like I said, I don't think these people are going to see any of this money. If anything, if there's any money that does get out, I can see them using this as a way to even fund these same kind of militias so they can buy more weapons and be more violent, if anything, which to me is an even bigger problem. I can see that being the thing. But if you think all of these people are going to get these big, giant checks and just live lavishly, I don't see it happening because Trump has never been a man of his word when it comes to paying people. And again, $1.7 or $8 billion, he is going to find a way to keep it in his pockets along with everything else that he's already done. The man had all them people buy them Trump phones. I don't think they got them yet. And I forgot how many thousands of people bought them phones. They still don't got them. That man lies all night, all day. And if you think a man who just sued his own government, or technically sued himself for $10 billion is going to be at peace with settling for $1.8 billion that's going to go into a fund for other people, when we know how greedy he is, be for real. Watch these people not get this money. Anyway, let's see what y'all are saying in the chat. She doesn't even go here. Exactly. Somebody said they just left a bad review on Yelp. Somebody said, leave us alone. Exactly. Calvin, if only our celebrities, non-famous millionaires, and non-famous billionaires could fund these lawsuits as well as our continued fight for civil rights. I wish we had a few more people who were really down, right? Unfortunately, folks get into their wealthy bag and they'd be like, I'm out. I'm like, okay, whatever, because Khadijah don't need you. Let's see. Somebody say Cameron is a loser. Yeah, Cameron, I had been waiting for that one. And the next one, I'm like, please get Vivek too. Vivek, please lose that Ohio race because I'm going to be unhinged that day. Let's see. Somebody said he hasn't had a job in all this time. Well, I think his term ends and now he needs to find something. But yeah, you're going to sell them Cutco knives. Knock on them doors. Right? You can do Cutco. You can do Uber Eats. I did Uber before. Hell, I did Uber to buy this microphone. And I didn't like it because I didn't like people in my car. So I was driving with a hammer in the door just in case somebody was feeling froggy because I'm a smaller person. So I had to, just be ready. Something go down, just whack behind me. But yeah, as soon as I had enough to get this microphone, Uber was done. I didn't like it. Let's see. Somebody said, yep. May the spirit of Brianna hunt him. Exactly. Calvin, did you see Tara set Mayer on CNN going off on them people over this fund? I haven't. I don't really watch CNN. But every now and then, sometimes their clips will find a way on social media and I'll see them, but I'll look it up. Yeah, let's see. Somebody say anyone can apply. I'm applying. I feel like we should all apply, but I would say be careful with your name because once your name is in that system, ain't no telling what they're doing. That's the only thing that makes me a little nervous, right? Maybe there's a way you can file under like an LLC and say your business was negatively affected by that and do it that way or something. Because I don't trust them with anything of mine. I said reparations for white ignorance. Well, it wouldn't be the first time they got reparations. They just let him do whatever. Exactly. Anything he wants to do. Anything he wants to do. Okay. No phones, no returns on their deposits. So the people still don't got the phones yet. The Trump phones that were going to be so great. Like, let y'all be stupid and spend that money. Y'all spend that money on some nonsense. All right. I want to go to the next clip that I have also enjoyed. Where's that one at? Where did I put? Oh, maybe I didn't. Hold on, let me move it over. I was so excited I didn't put it in my little folder here. I've just been having a really great time this week, enjoying chickens coming home to roost. Chicken is lovely. It is lovely. Let me open that folder. Yes. Okay. To our next clip, ladies and gentlemen. Let me share. By the way, I'll share my 2 cents on this individual once we get through this clip because I didn't even know who this was until last week. All right, go. All right, can y'all see? Yes, you can. All right, action. Let's turn my sound up.
This you're here this morning in case number 26 CR. I'm on set initial bond at 1.25 million. Based upon the fact of how many people were in the courtyard, we're here at the courthouse, and the seriousness of all these felonies and his bond status.
Lock him up. That's right. Y'all know I'm always talking about the prison industrial complex and what's jacked up about the judicial system. But every now and then, I got to get behind them when they're doing the right thing. So this is an individual who I have never heard of. And I'm glad about it because it means that I'm doing a great job in my algorithm and not following a bunch of foolery. Because like I've said before, I get tired of clowns finding their way into my acknowledgement of existence, right? So this is a guy named Chud the Builder, who I've never heard of until social media blew this guy up. This is a person who was going around harassing Black people all day because, again, people have an obsession with us. People they just bust the biggest you-know-what thinking about us. I don't know. But he is a person who would spend all of his time going into predominantly Black areas while on his, I don't know if it was Instagram Live or Twitter Live or one of the lives. He was living it up, right? And he would go and harass Black people on purpose and then hope that they try to either fight back or push or fight him so it could give him a justification to shoot somebody or stab somebody. And so there's all these clips of this man going around the country bothering Black folks, bothering black women. There's a clip where he maced a black woman or pepper sprayed her, like, because he can't fight, right? You know they can't ever fight either. They got all the smoke in the world and got all this noise, but cannot fight. He's shaking, nervous, right? And so that's why they always have to resort to trying to stab you or pepper spray or guns or something. So he spends all this time going and harassing people to the point where he starts to get some notoriety and people start to recognize him on the street. He ends up in some kind of situation. I didn't watch the full video, but he ends up shooting somebody, of course, and he tried to claim self-defense. Unfortunately, because it was caught on video, the story doesn't add up. He gets arrested. He gets charged, I think, actually, I guess we could just read the article while I'm over here trying to explain it. Let's see what they're talking about on here. Who is Chud the Builder, an N-word using content creator accused of shooting a black man? And I don't know why they put that in a question mark because it's on video, Rolling Stone. The 28-year-old, 28? This is a hard 28. Has he been doing this for 28 years or he's actually 28? Yeah, 28-year-old streamer. Okay. Moisturize, stay out of the sun. That's why you need to mind your business so you can age well. Real name, Dalton Etherly, is being held in Tennessee on a charge of attempted murder. On May 18th, wow, that's the same day as the Mount St. Helens eruption and the same day as the Liberty Strikes in 1980. May 18th might be a day some folks need to just stay in the house. Last week, Chud the Builder, live streamer who revels in using and incendiary racist phrases, shot a man multiple times. See, he was trying to get the job done. See, that's what I'm talking about. That good. $1.2 million for that bond. Outside of Tennessee courthouse, a 28-year-old streamer whose real name is Dalton Etherly is in custody as he faces an attempted murder charge, among other felonies. Although the arrest seems to have only boosted his brand among his audience, of course, because that's how they move. He has not yet entered a plea. Who is Chud? I don't care. We don't need to add. We know it's a racist white man. That's all you need to know. His online presence grew as he continued to film himself antagonizing black people in public, claiming it was his First Amendment right to call people racist names, often flashing his gun when people reacted with anger. Joshua Fisher Birch, researcher of online extremism at the Counter Extremism Project, called him a rage-baiting streamer or simply an outrage merchant. He's trying to build this following by angering people. Fisher Birch tells Rolling Stone he's yelling racist statements, being a racist public nuisance in hopes that this will lead to positive financial contributions. Because he's broke. Let's see. Okay, he had 229,000 followers on Twitter. All right, rage bait. What happened at the shooting? All right, listen, I don't know how this happened. In early afternoon on May 13th, that's the day my grandma died, Etherly got into a verbal altercation with a man named Joshua Fox outside of Montgomery County Courthouse in Clarksville, Tennessee. According to the warrant obtained by Rolling Stone, during the exchange, Etherly turned his body in a bladed stance towards Mr. Fox and reached for his firearm located in his right jacket pocket. Etherly allegedly began firing, hitting Fox multiple times. Fox survived, but had to be airlifted to the hospital for emergency surgery. Surveillance footage also showed a projectile ricocheting off walls in the courtyard with several bystanders present, the warrant stated. Etherly, who's also allegedly grazed himself with a bullet, so stupid you can't even shoot right and shot yourself, while firing repeatedly, was treated for minor injuries in the hospital before being arrested. And these be the main ones talking about civil war and can't even execute their own. Okay. Though the shooting itself was not live streamed, audio of Etherly speaking with police was uploaded to Pump.fun. Y'all got some websites here. That sounds like a porn site, but okay. In which he claimed he was acting in self-defense. Video posted by Clarksville Now shows Etherly leaving the scene on a stretcher. Talking all that, and you shot yourself and lost. The man that you went after is being airlifted, and you still had to get put on a stretcher. Imagine that. Etherly's sudden fame from sabotaging from the shooting and felony charges seems to have only heightened his appeal as a warrior for white supremacists on the villainous far right. As of May 18th, he's raised more than $250,000 on his Give, Send, Go. And I followed up with that story, and it's funny because the judge said you can't use any of that money for your bail, unfortunately. Sorry. So figure it out with your broke ass. I'm going to stop there. But anyway, what's interesting is people like him are in a space where they understand that the system works in their favor. And he was under the presumption that he'd be able to shoot some black folks, claim self-defense, and get off. He felt he could pull a George Zimmerman type thing, and that was the way it was going to be. And so he spent all this time instigating, hoping somebody would respond. Because, again, I didn't know who this person was until I saw the bail hearing. Right? I was like, ooh, the bond here, 1.2 million. What did he do? Right? You know, they don't normally give that kind of bail for white men. So I was like, he must have really did something crazy. But But I will say for us, this is why we sometimes have to be careful in these moments, and we don't have to invite ourselves to every fight, because a lot of folks like that, there's people like that all over that are looking for the opportunity to try and incite violence. Think of, do you remember, it was on Dateline, I can't remember the case, but it was this guy, it's like this older white man who didn't like his neighbors, some other white folks, and they were always having parties and stuff, and he got so mad that he came out with his gun to go tell the neighbors to be quiet, but he was trying to get the neighbors to attack him so he could shoot them. So while he's recording, he's like, I am afraid for my life, while he's pointing a gun. I am afraid for my life. I am walking. And then he ended up shooting and killing one of the neighbors anyway, and then tried to claim self-defense. Locked up, life. Play with somebody else. You were out there trying to start something, because again, what are you walking over there with the gun for? Premeditated. The minute you go in the house and go grab the weapon, it's now premeditated, which means it's first-degree murder. So boom, enjoy that 25 to life. And so like a Chud the Builder, the sad part is there will be many copycats who try to build that same kind of platform in the same way where once Charlie Kirk went on to wherever he went, you started seeing an influx of other like right-wing extremist type content creators that were all trying to hop in that lane and be the next one. There's going to be other Chud the Builders, but again, leave people alone. Y'all realize there's the obsession. Imagine getting up and saying, well, today I'm going to drive to a part of town I don't live in, and I'm going to find a group of people to mess with, and hopefully one of them attack me so I can kill them. Like, how do you get there? What happened in childhood? Did you not get to be line leader in first grade and you feel some kind of way about it so everybody had to suffer? Like, why? Why? People are tired. Everything's expensive. People are working too many hours and not getting paid enough. And then you got to take care of medical bills and take care of your aging parents and take care of your bad kids. And the dog is expensive. Every time you turn around, the dog done choked on something. You got to spend $1,500 at the vet, and then the dog want to go and play like nothing is wrong. Like, people are exhausted and over all of this. We're in a war that nobody asked to be in. We got a stupid president. We got a stupid Congress. We got a compromised Supreme Court. We got the schools getting gut. Everything is a mess. And you still want to go and bother people. Like, I do not get it. Make it make sense. So I'm enjoying the fact that he can't afford his bond and that the bond is $1.25 million. And he most likely will probably be convicted because, again, the shooting actually did end up getting caught on video, and it shows him being the aggressor and starting the entire thing. Anyway, an idiot. You going to try to start some stuff and then you shoot yourself. Just stupid. But these are the folks with the superior genetics, according to them. All right. Anyway, let's see here. Actually, before I even go to the comments, let me just to balance it out, because I need a good, I think this is my last story anyway. Let's end on a high note, because I enjoyed this clip here. This has made my day. I had to edit it though, because I mean, she talks the way that I talk, but y'all know I don't want to use too much profanity on the channel, so I try to keep it somewhat clean out of respect for the elders on here. Okay, let's go. It's go time. I don't know if you guys have seen this clip yet.
Right here. Yeah, that's your ass.
So you don't like saying it, right? You gonna call me? I bet you won't call in front of a black man.
I bet you won't call me.
Let me help you. You call a black woman N-word, call me that.
No, call me.
I dare you to do it. I swear for God, I'll make you taste the ancestors.
Me too.
You a coward. Call that black woman the N-word. You a real coward, man. We'll catch you inside. Come right ahead. I guarantee you won't do it in front of me.
Come on.
In fact, I know you won't. Say the N-word in front of me.
Come on, down in there.
And I'll give you a taste of everything for the ancestors. Say it. Say it in front of me. I dare you to say it. It's Quannell X, but you'll learn it real well today.
Yeah.
Say it. I bet you won't say the word in my face. See, you talk to black women like that by themselves. You intimidate black women by themselves. But a black man, you gonna open your goddamn mouth. I dare you to say it. I dare you to say it.
They're hearing it again, shake your old ass now. Run around with your bald head and your spike little face looking. I ain't playing with you. Look here, tell Judge Brayshaw we got Brandon in that courtroom, okay? All right.
Okay, listen. I watched that clip a million times, especially the beginning, because I took out the profanity, but when she said Mr. blah, 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 oh, that sent me. I was losing. Okay, so that's Candice Matthews. And then the other guy, he said his name on there, Quannell X, but I remember seeing him on all those news outlets where they'd have him debate with the racist white lady all the time. I just want to highlight again, folks will do all. What happened here is that, do I have the document? I don't know if I saved it or not, but that is an attorney. I forgot what that man's name is. Mike something. Well, did I write it? Let's see if I wrote it down. I don't know if I wrote it or not. Probably didn't. I didn't. It's okay. Either way, so that man is an attorney, and actually, I'm gonna find it because I need this story to land right. We're going to end on a high note tonight because that made my day. Let's see. So the man's name. This is in Brazoria County, Texas. And the guy's name is Michael M. Phillips, an attorney in Angleton, Texas. If I'm saying it wrong, please correct me. And so he's been licensed since '69. This is the white man we're talking about. He opened a firm back in '71, and he ended up getting caught saying like some super racist stuff and using the N-word in, like, I want to say in the courthouse. I'm trying to find this story, man. I need to see what he actually said. Damn, I don't know where it's at. Either way, clearly it must have been said to Candice Matthews, because Candice wasn't having it. Now, I will say for Quannell, the only thing I will say, like, I think Quannell was underestimating Candice. Candice could have handled that by herself, right? But I love that it was a tag team that he had her back. A lot of these folks are froggy all the time. And when it's time to jump, all of a sudden their knees don't work. So that's why a lot of times we have to decipher what we want to give our energy to. But every now and then, a good cussing out is warranted. And all of that was that was needed. Let me go. I'm going to play that one more time. I want you to look at his body language. I'm going to turn the sound down just so you can just see. Go back to the body language, right? Where's that thing at? All right, sir, where you at? Yes. Oh, let me share this back. That man was shook, right? Whole face sunken. Let me go back. You already on a cane talking trash, right? And no disrespect to anybody with a cane, but I'm just saying, you moving real confident. And this man is over here shook, nervous, ain't got nothing to say. He been running his mouth the whole time, not mute. Nothing, right? Even a mom got more words to say than him. And I love that as Quannell is saying everything, she's echoing it. Mm-hmm, yep, right. Uh-huh. I died when she talked about having the hearing aid. I was like, she lashing him. It's what he gets. Exactly what he gets. That man had nothing to say. All that mouth, all that energy over there shook, scared. And that's honestly how a lot of them are. They feel empowered because they have policy to back them. They feel empowered because there's a system that backs them. But when they're by themselves and in that moment, the system ain't working in their favor, they have nothing to offer, nothing to say, shook, scared, whole face turning red, right? Nervous. These folks are not as tough as they present themselves to be. Even Orange Man. Catch Orange Man on the street by himself and watch him. Remember the time the eagle just flapped his wings? He was about to lose everything. The eagle was like, and you know animals can read bad energy, right? Anyway, yeah, the ones that be the most racist are cowards. And the same thing with the Chud the Builder guy. There's a reason why he had to bring his gun to everything, because he knew he couldn't fight. But he'll go and start stuff with everybody and try to be a victim. Like a lot of these folks, they will bother folks all the time. I really want to find that quote that man said. So I'm pressed about it because I need to get the transcript of whatever was said, because whatever he said clearly deserved a cussing out. Candice Matthews. I need to find it. We're about to find it right now. Okay, no, that's a racist rant from a police officer. I know this man is not an officer because he's moving with the cane. I don't know who he'd be stopping to pull over. We might have to let it go just for the sake of time. According to social media, Matthew, she read transcripts claiming Phillips used the N-word towards the black female lawyer, while the judge, Bradshaw, warned him that continued use of the slur could lead to contempt sanctions. Oh, so he was just going to keep doing it anyway. Okay. Matthews also noted Phillips has practiced law since '69, saying he still has the old ways in him that she couldn't wait to confront him. Quannell and Matthews challenged Phillips to repeat the slur in front of them. At one point, Quannell told Phillips, "I dare you to do it. That's where to go." Oh, this was the line. "I'll make you taste the ancestors." I felt that deep down in my spirit. You knew what time it was. If you were to ever hear him call him the N-word, while Matthews echoed the warning. Quannell X also accused Phillips of trying to intimidate a black woman in the courtroom, calling him a coward. Matthews and Quannell are standing 10 toes down against racial injustice, demanding a public apology and the State Bar of Texas investigation and a possible disciplinary action against Phillips' law license. Yeah, like these folks, they out here playing games. Learn to leave us alone. All right. Anyway, those are all my topics. So I'll read the chat for a little bit and then we will kind of call it a night. Let's make sure I covered everything. The audacity. You got all that and then you gonna be scary. Imagine that. No, go on and listen. If you bout it, let's be about it. That's all I'm saying. All right. Can kind of reminds me sometimes every now and then somebody will send me an email or like a message on social media, somebody who doesn't like what I say, right? And then, they'll give me the email, you stupid black tar baby, whatever they want to say. But some of them are so unintelligent, they do it from their Gmail accounts that have their real government name. And then we find out where they work and we find out all that. And then I'm like, well, I love that you had to say this. I'm going to make sure I send this over to your place of employment. Oh, what? Whoa. I actually apologize. I just had a rough day. My wife has just been giving me a hard time. I'm like, yeah, so somehow nigga came out, huh? Okay. In an email that you typed. You know how much effort it takes to find me on an email and then type out the N-word in the message? That is some effort. That ain't got nothing to do with your wife. Okay? Whatever. You get froggy. Imagine thinking you're going to be able to punk somebody with like 80,000 subscribers. Don't you realize if I was a terrible person, I could put you on blast and end you if I wanted to? Okay? Let's see. Somebody said lock Chud the Builder up for life. Yeah, lock Chud the Builder. Goodbye. Good riddance. And the few videos of him I did see, I was like, see, they're very tripping because he uses all these terms and everything. And then when people respond, he, again, hops on every racist stereotype. I'm like, how do you wake up with that kind of energy? I know I be dragging people here, but that's in response to the nonsense. I don't wake up with that kind of energy on my heart every day. Man, somebody said that man is 28 years of age. Yeah, let me go bring, it's lashing time. Let me go back to him. Let's evaluate this because this is a hard 28. This is here. I thought at least. Let me go back. This is kind of like when Crime Stoppers comes on. Remember the Crime Stoppers commercials and stuff? This is definitely one of those like Crime Stoppers pictures. Like 28. Well, okay. He still got his hairline, so that's about right. But this is just all right. I would have guessed like 41, 42-ish. Maybe even like 45. That's what I got from here. All right. Well, ain't my concern. He can make friends and sell blockade. Have a great time. Aging like a sliced apple. Let's see. One of his fanboys trying to gaslight black people into thinking he was just trying to help the black. Excuse me? Hold on. One of his fanboys trying to gaslight black people into thinking he was trying to help the black community. The dumbest ish I've ever heard from these. Chud the Builder was helping us as he was telling us not to, the things he was saying. I'm not about to repeat that nonsense on here. Okay. They will gaslight and play in your face too. Yes, the judge shut down those racist donations because whenever, and this is why I said that collective only moves as one unit when it's time to be racist. Any other time they're all over the place. But when racism calls in the middle of the night, they all answer the call. Be ready to donate. Don't even got no money. Broke is I don't know what, but they got $20 to donate to some nonsense. Make it make sense. Said all those cameramen were ready for the beatdown. Like, look, they walked up on that old man. And he said, say it to me. I'm like, all right. That's okay. You just need that every now and then. Just a few folks to remind folks. Because people have been getting real comfortable lately. And I'm like, y'all getting real comfortable with some of the nonsense y'all got going here. Like, get it together. In the courthouse, Rainy Feather. In the courthouse. Imagine that. I remember when I was on jury duty, I had no idea that, when the court goes to recess or lunch, that everybody ends up in the same hallway. I used to think that, the people on the plaintiff or prosecution side go through one secret hallway and defense and defendants go on another. No, everybody was in that same hallway. And I definitely was in the courtroom one time. It wasn't my case. I was just going to get my lunch, but there was definitely about to be a fight in the courthouse between like different parties. I was like, dang, I didn't know y'all just have everybody in there. Okay. All right. My God. Wait, where's my chat going? Okay, my chat just jumped for some reason. Poison Ivy said, the entire time I watched this, I was singing, I bet you won't. I bet you won't. Exactly. Everybody loves this clip. Somebody said, if they put this clip in theaters, I'm buying tickets. Exactly. Because some of them just be feeling I just don't get how we get to a space where in every moment when something doesn't go your way, you just resort to racism. You just resort to every horrible term or whatever you can throw out there because you don't have the range or the capacity to actually refute or meet the demand of whatever is being asked. And so you just latch onto what you think is power and use it. And then you lose badly, looking stupid. That I know that man's heartbeat was like pacemaker about to go out, right? Somebody said, why are you looking over there? No one's coming to save you. Exactly, because, you know, they do that who's with me kind of energy. They be thinking somebody's supposed to join in and help. Random, Janet is 60licious. Happy birthday, Diva. She looked really good at that birthday party thing. How's it going, Janet? I was laughing when they were singing happy birthday, and she didn't like the way they were singing it, so she made them sing the Stevie Wonder version, but she started it off. I said, I told y'all, Janet be belting every now and then. Y'all be talking about she whispered. She didn't whisper in that clip. She said, y'all gonna sing it right. Let's see. Watching from Canada. Must be nice. Must be nice over there. Y'all got room for 40 million of us for just for a little bit? Because, man. All right. Let's see. Somebody said he has fans. What exactly does he do? Just he's a terrible person, and you know, terror is attractive to some folks. So yeah, they flock to that kind of nonsense, unfortunately. What up, Angel Haven? Shout out to you. Angel Haven's been up here for a long time. I love their channel because they have a lot of wonderful vintage R&B clips and concerts and stuff. So shout out to your channel. Belize guy, I'm not doing this with you tonight. I'm not doing this with you. Not too much on this. There will be no Jackson slander. Thank you very much. Anyway, let's see. I got about 5 more minutes. Make sure you all are safe this Memorial Day. I think I'm trying to go to Artscape in Baltimore because I think Stephanie Mills is headlining, but it's supposed to rain all weekend, so I might have to do something different. And then I know I'm gonna catch the Michael Jackson show at Broadway, and the Death Becomes Her Broadway show is getting ready to close, and I want to make sure I support Michelle Williams, so I'm gonna catch that too. So I'm gonna kind of just begin a little bit of traveling in, but yeah. Y'all see these folks mad at Lupita for being in the movie? They cry about everything, professional victims. Is that what Elon was? Somebody was telling me something about Elon and Lupita, and I didn't understand what was going on because I know anything that comes out of Elon's mouth is something racist and something crazy, right? I'm still trying to figure out why his chest keeps expanding further and further out, like it's gonna explode. He need to worry about that. But yeah. Quinta Brunson and Betty, I did see that. That should be interesting. Let's see. Somebody's going to Universal Studios for Memorial Day. I went there. Oh, I've been there twice. Actually, and I've been to both ones. I've been to the one in LA. I went to that one in high school. And that one was kind of cool because one of the Fast and Furious movies had just come out. So the cast was like all around the park. And I think that was the very first time I ever met a celebrity. I can't remember who the 2 ladies were, but they were in the movie apparently. And they were driving the cool cars like slowly around and greeting people. And then I was so mad because I remember my dad took the picture, but the quality of the picture just wasn't good. Like it was just our luck that the picture came out all blurry. And then I think I was trying to edit it in like Microsoft Paint. Mind you, this is like 2004, 2005. And then I messed up the picture and we didn't have the original file. So there's that. Anyway, we went again, or my job took us, we had to drive to Orlando from DC in a van. And we just happened to be by Universal, and that Universal has this live karaoke that is so much fun. They have like, I don't know, maybe a roster of like 150 songs. And if you pick one of the songs, when you go up there, it's like you're doing a real full live performance. There's background singers, there's a band, there's lasers. You might even get a dancer or two. And when you perform, it's like a real stage show. That was the coolest karaoke I've ever been to. The only thing I hated was that there were so many people signed up. I only got to do one song because I wanted to be up there the rest of the night. But I had a ball. That was so much fun. And that was the last time I've been there. Never been to Disney World. I have been to Disneyland. But yeah. Anyway, let's see what we got here. Somebody said aging like a sliced apple. I've never heard of that. I mean, think about it. Like, as soon as you slice an apple in half, you turn around and look back, and that thing done turned brown already. I'm like, It ain't even crisp no more. You know, apples are supposed to be crisp. I love that word, like crisp. But as soon as you slice it and let that slice just breathe for 2 seconds, it all of a sudden turns soggy and brown. And I'm like, what is this? You couldn't even wait. Frankie again from Set It Off. Let's see. Do I have the clip? Actually, while we're at it, because I think I got the clip in my phone somewhere. Let me see. Because Belize Gal is about to get Belize Gal. I'm gonna find this clip because I know I got it in here. I know I got it in here because I just was playing it. And I put it on my story. Do I got it? Just for you, Belize Gal. This is for the ones that say my girl whisper all day. Oh yeah, I got it. Okay, let me airdrop this to myself. We're gonna in that way we can say happy birthday to whoever's birthday is on May 21st, which is technically right now. All right, let's airdrop this and we're gonna play this just for Belize Gal because that's how it goes. All right. Anyway, this is a clip from it was her birthday, and yeah, they were singing and she ain't like the way they were singing, so she said, y'all gonna do it right. Hold on, let me share my screen again, Miss Jackson, if you're nasty. All right. So I got, oh yeah. All right, Miss Jackson.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
All I want to say is, y'all saw she led that off right. Let me get into that chest voice since y'all say she whispered. Hold on. Go again.
Happy.
That happy. You think that strong beat. Now she went a little flat on the second part, but that's okay. Telling me that girl whispered. That ain't a whisper. I done told y'all don't be going to her shows enough. Anyway, let's see. What up, Nelton? Make sure y'all shout out to his channel too, Nelton Bernarr. Nelton, put the link to your channel in the chat. Nelton does a lot of really motivational speeches, especially like with his career. Like he had a whole full out military career, retired. He does like a lot of stuff in the community, motivating folks to go and be great and follow your dreams and stuff like that. So support his channel as well. Let's see. Somebody said Janet looked like she was over at that birthday party. Well, first of all of them was singing happy birthday all 10 different ways at the same time. She like, let me just start it off because y'all doing this wrong. Let's see. Okay, so the Lupita thing is Helen of Troy. Okay, well, they just gonna have to be mad. It is what it is. Did I win any of the music award? I did not, but it's okay. Next time. Oh, I guess I got to do another project at some point too. But yeah, it is what it is. No hard feelings. I know my work was great, so I was just happy to even get a nomination. 4 of them at that. Let's see. Somebody said Disney World is low-key overrated. I've never been. I used to always want to go as a kid. We went to Disneyland, and that was fun. Until at the time I was afraid of heights because I was 8. This is like, if you follow my podcast, I tell the story how me and my dad did this whole road trip, starting in Washington, working our way down to California, over across to Texas, and then stopping in all the Gulf states and visiting family, stopping in Savannah. Well, we picked up my mom in Oklahoma because she was visiting a friend. Stopped in like Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia to visit family, stayed in Savannah for Christmas that year. My little brother Marcus was already there. And then we drove up through the Carolinas, visited some more friends. That was the first time I ever saw DC. We drove straight through DC. We ended up in Philly, and then that's when we flew to Italy. It was like a 1.5, 2 month journey. But yeah, when we went to Disneyland, I remember I saw Space Mountain, and Space Mountain to me, it looked like one of the houses off the Jetsons. Let's see if I can find a picture. Space Mountain. I need y'all to see exactly what I saw as a child. Let's see. Okay, I'll take this. Okay, so let me share my screen. So anyway, we're at Disneyland, and I've never been to get on like a lot of rides and stuff at the time because there were no amusement parks in my area. We had this little place called Wild Waves in Enchanted Village, which unfortunately I think is just now closing. But yeah, there was no big Six Flags, nothing by me growing up. So anyway, me and my dad are in the line, and I see this building that looks like, I thought it was like a house off the Jetsons or something. And so I told my dad, like, I want to go to this. Can we go to that? Can we please go to that, Dad? And so he's like, okay. So we get there, and then we're standing in this line. Now, remember, this is Disneyland, and this was close to Thanksgiving because, yeah, I was already out of my dad pulled me out of school in that October, and I was out of school for like 2.5 months. But anyway, it was around Thanksgiving time. So a lot of people are in town. The place is packed. We're in that line for at least an hour. And once you get inside, this is 96. I don't know what it looks like now. But when you get inside, they had this glass wall, and you can see the indoor roller coaster just moving around the ball. And so 3 minutes, once we got inside of the building, about 3 minutes in, I realized, wait, this isn't a store. Like, I thought it was like a store or like the Jetsons house, and I was going to see George Jetson and daughter Judy and his boy Elroy walking around. No, it was this roller coaster that's chum, 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 chum. And I was terrified. And I remember I was boo-hoo crying in that line because I didn't want to get on it. But my dad was like, we done already stood in this line for an hour. You gonna get on this ride. Like, I had to get on a ride. And I just remember I got on and I had my head down like this the whole time. And it wasn't even that bad. I was in my head, but I was terrified. And I never got on a roller coaster again until I was 18. But the memories. We love our parents. We have all these traumatizing stories, and all you can do is laugh at them once you get older. Anyway, so I said, all right, Miss Jackson, you sounded like the stage manager. She wasn't having it. Let's see. Which part of Mississippi is your dad's family from? Don't let me mess around and know y'all folks. My dad's people are like Vicksburg, Mississippi, Utica, that whole kind of Jackson area, but mainly everybody I know for sure was like specifically Vicksburg and Utica. And yeah, because I remember, when we went to Utica, and this is the 90s. That's the last time I've been there, but it was like a really, really small town. It was like one grocery store and a church. I had a great time I think it was my dad's great aunt's house we were at, because she had chickens, and I remember running around and playing with the chickens and stuff. So that was fun. And the property still had an outhouse, because I think it was sharecropping property at one point. And I just remember my mother, who was pretty bougie at this time. My mother was not trying to stay there, and she was so happy when my dad had another cousin who had a trailer. My mother had never been so happy to go to a trailer before. I liked the house. I thought it was cool, but I think the outhouse was bothering my mom. Like, I gotta go where? And if you've ever been in an outhouse, there's smells and things that you can't even identify that have been there for decades and stuff. So yeah, she was like, what up, Raywin? Now I do get on rides now. They don't bother me because I told the story in the podcast too. When I got to let me see. My church took us to Disneyland when I graduated, so I did that. But I don't think I got on any roller coasters. But then when I got to Howard did this thing where they wanted all the freshmen to get to know each other better. So that first week or two, I don't remember if this was when classes started or if it was before classes, but they did all these different events. One of the events was a trip to King's Dominion, and the girl that had invited me to the group, I had to kind of like crush on. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna hang with her, because I assumed, because again, I wasn't a rides person, I assumed she'd be the kind of prissy, I don't want to get on nothing and mess my hair up kind of girl. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'm gonna hang with her, because that way I don't have to get on the roller coasters. Because again, I was still terrified of heights. Even to the point where when I first moved into my dorm room, I was nervous about being 3 floors up. I'm fine now. I'm not scared of heights anymore. But anyway, and so I'm thinking she's not going to want to get on anything, because she was like a girl's girl, the long hair and the heels and pearls and makeup and perfumes. So I'm like, yeah, she's not going to get on none of this stuff. That girl had a pair of sneakers in her bag that she switched out. And when I say she got on every ride that shot upside down, twisted, went backwards, accelerated in speed, braked, flipped you upside down, dropped it. We went on everything. And I couldn't look like a punk, so I had to keep getting on all the rides. Because I wanted to be, it was like 7 of us in one group. And there was one friend that would always stay back. Like, she was from Anguilla, and she had never been on none of these kind of rides before. And she was like, I'm not getting on none of this. So she would stay back and just like hold everybody's bags and stuff. And there was like 2 or 3 guys in the group. So I didn't want to look like a punk. So I'd be getting on those rides. Like, please let the ride break down before we get on it. And no, every ride worked. There was one that shot out of a volcano. What was that one? Let me pull a picture of that up. I was like, King's Dominion volcano roller coaster. Like, yeah, there was one that shot out of a, yeah, this right here. I don't know how I got on this crap back in the day. Hold on, let me, boy, I was stepping out on faith. Okay, so we ended up on whatever this thing here was. My God, listen, I am not, just think of somebody who don't do rides. I was getting on all this stuff. And then the worst part, then we ended up getting on the drop tower, which is the hold on, let's see, drop tower. That's the I didn't think I'd ever get on nothing like that, but at that point I had already got on everything. So I was like, it is what it is. And then we ended up on this thing here, which it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. What messed me up was just getting up there, because you kind of go slow, and then you keep thinking you're at the top, and then you look up and there's just so much more pole to go. But I will say this, when it dropped, and for whatever little 5 or 6 seconds where I thought I died, when we got to the bottom, you couldn't tell me nothing else the rest of the day. Then I was on like an adrenaline rush and wanted to get on everything else, right? And then I was never afraid of rides again. And then I remember my friend Jason invited me to Kings Dominion, like, I don't know, a few years after college, and we went on this same thing, but it broke down while we were on at that time. Like, we were sitting at the top, and I already really wasn't trying to get on it, because at this point, I've been working with the kids for a few years. So I've taken the kids to Kings Dominion and Six Flags and Hershey Park, and they want you to get on the rides with them, so you're constantly getting on the rides. So I'm good with the rides, but we got on this thing, and it rolls up. It was like summer of 2012 or 13, right? And we're sitting at the top, and I'm waiting for it to drop. Like, okay, drop. And now we're still sitting up there, and okay, the level of calmness that I once had is disappearing because we're getting up here too long, and I'm starting to get very aware and alert of everything that's around me. Why are we not dropping it? And so the ride broke down, and so we were stuck up there for like 30 minutes. And in like the mid-Atlantic, like as far as like DC, the Carolinas, and once you get further south, it's hot every day in the summer. It's like 80, 90 degrees. And because it's so hot, there's normally thunderstorms at night. And so while I'm sitting there, because it's becoming evening, I can see lightning bolts way off in the distance while they're trying to manually crank us down, and we're going down this slow. I was like, God, get me off this ride. Get me off now. Man. And so that was the last time I did one of them crazy rides. But yeah, I'm a rides person, but not really. And now that I'm not with the kids anymore, I'm not as pressed. And thank God all my godchildren are under the age of 8. They're too scared for all that. We do safe games like coloring and cooking and making desserts and, a hopscotch, playing with Legos, safe things that are on the ground. I got about 5 or 6 more years before they start asking me to go on all the crazy stuff. And then probably a few more years before you got to teach them to drive. All right. So that was my story time. Somebody said, visit Mississippi even before going to Africa, Ghana. Soil and other similarities will amaze you. We did this thing. It was really cool when I was with the kids one time, because I had a lot of kids that are from Ghana as well. It was like this thing just highlighting like the cultural dishes and how there's so many similarities with cuisine, where we did this correlation between like the Black American South, what's happening in the Caribbean, and what's happening on the continent, and how there were so many meals and dishes that we had that were exactly the same thing. We just called them something different. Or maybe sometimes they might be seasoned a little bit different. Like my favorite bit was how greens were made, especially like how the West Africans do their greens, because they kind of almost like cook them in the palm oil first and do some other things. And it was just interesting to see how we all did everything. That was a cool day. Let's see. Raywin said, I'm scared of roller coasters. Raywin, I get it. I don't mind them now, but they're cool. But Lee's got laser tag. Now, laser tag I can do forever. That's when I was with the kids, that was my favorite thing to do. Like I turned into a big kid with some laser tag. That used to be so much fun. And I remember one time, like when my cousin Brandon, I think, had his first daughter. This is when we were probably like 24ish. Me, Brandon, my cousin, my brother Marcus, Brandon's wife, and like one other person, we would go to laser tag. And I remember the first time we ever went, we saw, it was like this white family that went in there. It was like the dads with their Dockers and penny loafers and stuff. And so we're like, okay, we about to tear this family up. I'm gonna go after that one. You get that one. You get that one. Like we thought we were about to tear that up. And then as soon as it started, that family had strategy. They broke into different segments and were taking elevations. And it was like, no matter what we did, damn, I was just getting tore up. Like I had nowhere to hide. We lost so bad. That family tore us up. And I'm like, see, y'all just always been the ones with guns. Like I was like, dang, mind you, the parents in that group were like in their 50s and 60s. And we were supposed to be in our 20s in our prime. We were tired. You carrying the weight of the laser tag gun. Boy, now I got really good. Like all those years working with the kids, I had to tear them kids up in some laser tag. Same thing with dodgeball. That was the only way I could legally hit them. You want to act crazy all week? That's okay. We're going to be playing dodgeball soon, and I'm going to get all of y'all. Didn't want to do your homework? You want to suck your teeth? Okay, don't worry. Dodgeball will be today. I used to lay them kids out, all in fun. And then they got bigger than me and became more athletic than me. And then it was kind of like the other way around where it's like, yeah, Mr. Michael said that I couldn't go on the computer lab today. I'm going to get him doing dodgeball. And then it's like they try to, get their revenge. And then sometimes the kids would hit you with a ball and that ball had like I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Wait, I felt some kind of way with that one. You got something you want to say? So yeah, good times. All right, I got to get off this show. I need to go to bed. I do enjoy this chat though. Let me see. Yeah, somebody said, not you suffering through the ride. Said, yeah, my grandmother had a farm, so yes, outhouses were nasty. And so I was saying when I was like 8, so the outhouse didn't even bother me that much. You know how little kids are inquisitive anyway. So I figured out what it was. Like, okay, I'm good on that. But I spent all my time chasing the chickens, and they had like 2 goats. So chasing the chickens, running from the goat. And then I had met other cousins that I had never met before. So we played and just ran in the fields all night, had a ball. Just that wonderful. I feel like there's different experiences in the South. I always get the Savannah, Georgia, coastal city Southern experience, but that Utica experience was like something totally different. But it's still the same love that's there, right? You still feel supported and feel like you're a part of something that's great. So I enjoyed that too. Would I ever go skydiving? No, that's too close to death for me. I'm good. I don't even like getting on planes, to be honest. The only reason I can make it through flying is that I always tell myself there are thousands of flights that go a day or whatever. You never win anything. You never win a scratch off. You never win the lottery when you were a kid and there was always some kind of game by luck of the draw. You never were the one to win. It's not going to be your flight. Plus, your flight attendant looks good, so you're good. So even while the plane is getting tossed in the sky and shaking, as long as she is pushing that cart with do you like a Coke? I'm good as long as the flight attendant is good. So yeah, skydiving, too close to death for me. I don't even want to go bungee jumping because that's too close to lynching. I don't like that. Nope. Nothing with heights and nothing where I can't control the outcome. Let's see. Some friends and I went on a volcano at Kings Dominion. We were talking crap in the line because it was so long. The attendant heard us and made the ride go 3 times in a row. We were screaming for mercy. Yeah, that one. I just remember that you can feel the jerk, especially when it comes out of the volcano. You just, oh my God, like your whole neck and everything, jaw, everything be all hurting when you get off. Like those rides are kind of abusive sometimes. They need to figure out a way to make some comfort on there, right? Just be getting tossed around. And I'll tell you rides I will not get on. Those traveling carnivals that pull up in the parking lots and stuff, I don't get on those. Absolutely not. The ones where they assemble the rides real quick and take them back down. I ain't getting on nothing because I've seen too many of those fall apart or collapse or break. Absolutely not. Did I play basketball? I only played basketball in elementary. I played in 4th grade. I was okay, but I was not great. And I was too self-conscious. I used to hate if I got fouled because then I knew I had to take a free throw in front of everybody. And back then, this wasn't the era of political correctness. And I remember, because I played basketball when we lived in Italy, so you played the other military bases. And I still remember the other military base had the cheerleading squad, and they had cheers that were not nice. And I remember at one point I got fouled, I want to say by this kid, Raphael, because it was like we all were on the same base, but you'd have like 3 or 4 teams on your base, and then those 3 or 4 teams would play the 3 or 4 teams from Camp Darby or Verona. And I just remember I was at the free throw line, and them cheerleaders had this cheer where they're like, MISSIT, miss it for me, baby, miss it. And then you got to shoot it. And if you miss, all the cheerleaders, and you just like, worst feeling in the world. Like the way that they said miss it. It's like, who? And we're like 4th grade. What? Miss it for me, baby. I don't even think you could do nothing like that today. But man, somebody said my uncle and his lottery obsession. My mom was like that with the scratch off chick. Because every time I call her, I can just hear that penny just scratch, and she just be talking, and I hate that sound. And she was like, yeah, I went to the store today and went to Jiffy Lube and something. Yeah, so and so called, and I just hear that scratch. I'm like, Mom, how many of them things do you buy? But she's always winning. And then she'll call me while I like, especially when I was still financing the pullover so I can hit you the short film, and we had to spend all that money, and I was scraping together pockets of money to try to pay the special effects people. And my mom would just be calling with her scratcher. Oh, I won $700 just now. And I'm thinking, oh God, I still need like another 19,000 by tomorrow. And she, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, Mom, I don't know how we're going to do this. And then she'll say something like, well, did you pray? Yes, all the time. And I think God's ears are deaf to all of my prayers. Well, she got her 700, right? Yeah. So yeah, somebody said, meanwhile, I dream about what I do if I hit the lotto, but don't ever play the lotto. I don't really play the lotto. Every now and then I'll buy a ticket when it's like the big jackpot. But if I ever did win, I just want a lake house. That's all I want me a nice lake house, somewhat close to the city, but far enough from the city. I can get to the city in like 20 minutes, but I just want a lake house. I want to live by water, but I don't want to live off the beach because they got too many storms. I don't want to live off a river because they flood. But I can do a lake because lakes kind of just, they're there, right? And then I can fish and everything. I can get me like 2 big giant dogs, like a St. Bernard or like a, what is it? Bernese, what's the black, white, and brown one? Bernese something, whatever that one is. And just live a nice, quiet life. That's all I want to do, right? Sarah, what did you say? While I'm trying to find 50 million comments. Sarah, put your comment again because I don't know where it's. Okay, Sarah, you said, oh, hey, Calvin, it's Sarah here. I don't know if you remember. Sarah, yes, I remember you. Wanted to request if you can do more videos about music. They're coming. They just take forever, and they're not fun to make. But, yeah, they're coming. And, yeah, like I said, I've taken on the most ambitious So It Happened episode, and I'm like, please, God, let it be done already. And somehow I have to figure out how to shoot and film it while the world is falling apart and while working on, like, other projects. And like I said, like those So It Happens, you try to think of continuity. So simple things like even your hair has to kind of look the same. So if I shoot on a Monday and then I shoot again the following Sunday, when I do the editing, it doesn't look like I'm a totally different person when it shoots or jumps angles, like stuff like that you got to think about. But your hair may have to be different for something else you're working on or whatever. So it's sick of doing it, but whatever. Y'all asked for them, so I like them. Somebody said the New Jack Swing was really good. Actually, you know what? The New Jack Swing is probably the one I got the most pushback on. And it was because a lot of people felt I didn't give Teddy Riley enough credit, which I was like, how much credit do you want me to give the man? I thought we've established that he's the pioneer, he's the face and the sound. But he wasn't the only New Jack Swing producer. There were tons of them. As a matter of fact, Teddy Riley quit the music industry right smack in the middle of the New Jack Swing era because he got scammed. And the only reason he ended up coming back was because he did the remix for Jane Child's Don't Want to Fall in Love. And so during that time period while he was out, other producers hopped in and did their thing. I don't think I included that in the deep dive, but yeah, I was getting whacked. And then a lot of folks, they were like, the problem is people don't ever watch the whole thing and they be ready to argue. Because there was a segment where I did like a collage of different songs, and I was highlighting how New Jack Swing had really different sounds as we progressed. And specifically, when I got to like Mary J. Blige's Real Love and Jade's Don't Walk Away, folks like, oh, they're not New Jack Swing songs. And I'm like, had you waited till you got to the end of the video, I specifically talk about how a song like Real Love or Jade's Don't Walk Away sonically don't fit within the scope of what would have been deemed traditional New Jack Swing production, but it was at a stage in the era where New Jack Swing had expounded into so many different sounds where it could no longer fit into one bubble. And those songs somewhat serve as almost the end of that era and as the sounds would evolve into something else. But folks wanted to argue, and I was like, I don't feel like fighting with y'all, but whatever. Yeah, that was a fun video, but I got the most pushback on that one. I was like, y'all are annoying. Between that and, well, not y'all, between that and people who got mad at the first 4 minutes because I did the correlation of how K-pop's entire origin comes from New Jack Swing. And folks like, why would you include K-pop in a discussion about black music? Because black music always gets ignored. And so the conversation is, for all of these genres y'all want to run behind, remember that it's always us who serve as the originator. And that's where it comes from. But whatever. It was one specific generation that gave me all the smoke. Now, I'll give them a pass because they were a little bit older than me and weren't around for it. But still, spirit of too much. Folks be wanting to have like, I don't know. It's like this thing where some people will watch a deep dive and they only want to see information that they already know, Like it's like they're comfortable being stuck in the limited capacity of what they understand as opposed to learning something new. And so that sometimes is annoying. Where folks get mad at new information. Like, why would you sit and watch something where you already know all the facts and then you get everything you already knew, but you got nothing new out of it, right? That'll be a waste of time for me. But it is what it is. Let's see. All right, I got like 2 more minutes. Somebody said, just wear a do-rag in your videos and don't have to worry about the hair. Yeah, in this one, I'm wearing my Seattle Mariners hat because, again, I've been back and forth with having it like twisted again and just out. And it's too much work to keep going back and forth and trying to make it look. It's not even done right now. I've been laying down and napping and everything. Calvin, what are your thoughts on the Durand Tank Can We Talk discussion? That was an interesting interaction. I'm glad they were able to settle the beef. But as far as Tank's point, I saw Tank was saying, yeah, if you can't sing Tevin Campbell's Can We Talk in the original key, then you ain't a singer. My issue with that is, again, Tevin Campbell already had an unusually high voice in the same way that Michael Jackson did in his younger years. Like they're countertenors, which means that they have a lot of their chest voice that sits comfortably in the alto range where most men don't normally get to sit in that space. In addition to that, Tevin Campbell was a kid when he made the song. So thinking men that are in their 20s and 30s and 40s are going to be able to comfortably sing that high just naturally without a fight, I was like, it's a little tone deaf. And it also creates a space where, again, higher is the only standard in music. And again, even when we talk about women's voices, one of the reasons why my favorite vocalists tend to be altos is because altos have such a beautiful middle pocket, right? Some of my favorite vocalists like Gladys Knight, Layla Hathaway, Brandy, Tony, like they're all altos and they have these beautiful middle pockets. And yeah, they can sing high when they want to, but when they get in that middle pocket and really get there, especially Gladys on songs like I'll Be Standing By and Landlord and You're the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me and Meet Me in the Middle, like good pocket. It just sounds so good. And I love the Sopranos too. But the voice can go into so many different layers. I think people that are good singers just know how to use what they have and make whatever work within their respective space. Because in that same conversation, you can get somebody like Teddy Pendergrass, who I think is a very underrated male vocalist. He doesn't sing very high, but he sings strong. Me and my godmom were just watching the Lake Tahoe show the other day. Excellent concert. One of my favorite concerts to watch. Like he sits in this great pocket, and when he's there, it's on and popping, right? And all those songs, Love TKO, Close the Door, You're My Greatest, what is it? You're the Latest Greatest Inspiration. What else is he got a lot of them. Come and Go With Me, all of those good songs, right? So somebody like a Teddy Pendergrass, or like Barry White, who has a much deeper and lower pocket that he sings in, but you put on that Practice What You Preach, he's singing down. He don't got to go up to the rafters. So I think Durand had the right point where he was saying everything is not about just singing way up into the rafters if that's not your lane. Because then you're squealing. Now you're straining, trying to sit way up there. And then, or you've been conditioned to think that everything has to be high and you record all of your songs too high to perform, and then you can't perform any of them. Or you got to lower all the keys, or you're fighting for your life. So yeah, interesting. I'm glad they were able to work that out quickly, but that was an interesting conversation. Oh yeah, Phyllis Hyman. I forgot one of my main faves. Thank you. Who put Phyllis in there? Sarah. Yes. Yeah, listen, when Phyllis gets to when you get right down to it, I love that song there. You're not in love with him anymore. Like, that's a good one. Living All Alone, Old Friend. I'm sorry, Living in Confusion. No, it is Living All Alone, and then Living in Confusion. Okay, yeah. You Know How to Love Me, Prime of My Life, Don't Want to Change the World. She has some good ones. I Refuse to Be Lonely. You know who else? Now he sings really high, but I always gas up Phil Perry. But I love his song. I Love It. I Love. That's a good one. And I talked about Jermaine Jackson, I think 2 lives ago. Jermaine is an excellent vocalist. I think we underestimate him just because he had to stand next to Michael. But I was at my godmom's again. Anytime I go to my godmom's, at some point we turn on the TV in the kitchen with YouTube and just start putting on music and watching stuff. And we just started going through all these Jackson 5 clips. And it was crazy. We were watching them. They were performing. It's early Jackson 5. They're doing I Want You Back. And this is probably one of their first performances. Jermaine looks like he's 11, but he sounds like he's 45. Like, I was like, Jermaine be singing. He be getting it in. And like I said, his You Said album, Even though that's the one with the Michael disc, it has some really good songs in there, like the Dream I Dream, and even though I think the lyrics are corny, the We're Making Whoopee, but it's a nice melody. Like he has a great tenor range. He has a very silky smooth voice. Unfortunately, his career, I mean, he actually had a lot of hits. I think he gets overshadowed, but he had a nice run. And I like his vocals on I Am Love. I love Sarah Vaughan. She came on too. We ended up watching the performance where she's in Sweden, either Sweden or Switzerland, and she is sweating. But beautiful, beautiful, rich pocket that she sits in. Something about those vocalists from that era, like the Sarah Vaughans. Who sings Guess Who I Saw? Guess Who I Saw? What is that lady's name? Man, it's I can see her. And in her older years, she had the short gray haircut. Guess Who I Saw? Who is oh God, what is that lady's name? And she's from that same era of like the Sarah Vaughan, Etta James, Billie Holiday. I can't think of the lady. Nancy Wilson, thank you. The Kids Pajamas. Yeah, Nancy. Beautiful pocket, even in her older years. Man. All right, I need to go. Y'all know we talk music. I'll be up here another 20 minutes. I'm acting like I don't got to get up in 6 hours. Of course, Luther Vandross. Yes, excellent vocalist. And I love that Luther. Luther to me is one of the male vocalists that could stand next to some of the power women vocalists like a Whitney and not even shake. Still just go toe to toe, right? Because he had a strong range. I love those Wembley concerts. I like the Wembley concert when he's heavy set more than when he was skinny, because in skinny when he was cracking a little bit, it's okay. But yeah, those Wait for Love songs, I Can Make It Better, Power of Love, Here and Now. Here and Now is everybody's wedding song. That's one of the best bridges ever. Man, Dance with My Father, of course. I love that song. It hits different once it hits home, but I still love that. I think that's such a very well-written song. You can really tell it's from the heart, especially that line where he says the bit about when he can hear his mother crying for her father. I'm like, oh, Lord. That's a line there, beautifully written. Jasmine Sullivan, she's a favorite too. And my favorite Jasmine Sullivan song is Excuse Me. Excuse Me off of Love Me Back. Excellent track. Oh, Lord. Calvin, did you see the news story about 3 dead and at least 20 first responders injured from a substance found in a New Mexico home? Why and how would someone have something like that in their home? I did not hear that story, but that sounds scary to me. Yeah, I don't know about that. Raywin's favorite Jermaine Jackson song is Dynamite. I like the video. I mean, Dynamite's kind of fun because Jermaine wanted to be a balladeer. He didn't like doing up tempos, but he made good up tempos. Like I even like Let Me Tickle Your Fancy with Devo. That song, I like that one, especially the performance where LaToya and Reby are doing the backgrounds. I like his up tempos. I know he really wanted to really do ballads, and that was his lane. I think maybe had he just done a few more up tempos in the mix, he might have had a little bit more success. Because he has, I think, 9 albums. But Jermaine be singing, so I understand he had the voice for that kind of music. It's just unfortunately, the music industry was shifting to a more visual kind of style. Shirley Murdoch, her on them Zapp and Roger songs. Yes. Plus, As We Lay. But you know what song I like the most that she's on with Zapp and Roger? Slow and Easy. Everybody loves Computer Love. Everybody loves I Want to Be Your Man. Slow and Easy is that one. That is that one I got to play back. There's a few songs where when they come on, I'm going to play them 3 or 4 times because I never get enough of them. Like that song, Faith Evans, I Love You. For some reason, I got to play it back and run it back 3 or 4 times as soon as I get home as well. The Rude Boys is Written All Over Your Face. That's one where I will go back. Just a few of them. Sade, Nothing Can Come Between Us. I always start that one over. Brand New Heavies, Never Stop. I always start that one over. Mary J. Blige, I'm in Love. I always start that one over. I'm in Love and The Love I Never Had. I never make it through the full song. I be rewinding and starting that part right there. What else? Tevin Campbell got a few that I'll be playing like a lot. Goodbye, I'm gonna play 3 or 4 times. Could You Learn to Love? That one there should have been that. It deserves what Can We Talk got. Could You Learn to Love to Me is his best single. Just he was doing his singing. Man. All right. Tamia, well, we love her. She has Between Friends is my favorite Tamia album. It has some gems on it. Almost. I love that song. My Last First Kiss. Happy. I like her cover of Aretha Franklin's Daydreaming. Become Us is my favorite song off that album. Let's see what we got here. Cameo Sparkle. I like that one. Sparkle in Your Eye. That's a good one. We love, y'all know Tony's one of my favorites. Tony has been my most listened to Spotify artist for like 4 years in a row. Folks be thinking it's Janet, but it's always Tony. Janet's usually number 2, but it's because Tony, I play a lot of Let It Flow. Lots of Let It Flow, lots of Shadowless and I Wanna Be and Trippin'. And I love me some Him. I love that song. Breathe Again, You Mean the World to Me. Best Friend. In the Late of Night. Always. Selfish. She's got some. Yeah, Tony's a favorite. Let's see. Al Green. I really liked his album that came out in 2007. The one that has like Stay With Me and What More Do You Want From Me. That's a nice album. The Just Take Your Time song with Corinne Bailey Rae. Atlantic Star. For Always. Yeah. Okay, I was mixing up with Midnight Star. For Always. We like Atlantic Star. Glenn Jones. I saw him in concert before. That was a good show. Oh wait, I'm thinking Glenn Lewis. Glenn Jones is We've Only Just Begun. Glenn Lewis is in Don't You Forget It. My bad. My aunt is friends with Glenn Jones. Let's see. Did I see the mentor question? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm scrolling to find it. Mentor. Okay. Well, yeah, I have a question. Do you believe that someone who is a young adult can be friends with an older adult, or is that a mentorship? How does mentorship even work? I mean, adults can be friends with any other adult, but I think it depends on what the friendship is. Like, I guess an example I could think of, when we were in the dorm, our GA was about 46. We were all like 20 years old. She was more of a mentor, but we could all still do stuff and like hang out. Like if we all went to happy hour once we were old enough to drink legally, we could all together go to a bar and laugh and stuff because we all worked together. So that was kind of like a mentor friendship kind of setup where, even now, every now and then she'll check on me, make sure I'm good, but we could also still like hang out and laugh and stuff. It kind of depends on just, whatever's going on. So I think especially once you hit a certain age, your friendships and your friend pool just expands into all kind of different realms where, you be real tight with some folks who are a bit older. Like even some of my more creative friends, a lot of them I might be 8 or 9 years older than. So I've got a few good friends that are like 28, 29, 30-ish, right? And then I got some who are in like their mid 40s, knocking on the door at 50. And then I got the ones who are in my age range. Kenny Lattimore is a favorite as well. I really like him and Shantae Moore's cover of Minnie Riperton's Here We Go. That's an excellent cover. Excellent cover. Kenny Lattimore sings down. All right, I can go to bed, y'all. Okay, Raywin, we have the same favorite Mary Jane girl. So, I got 2 favorite Mary Jane girl songs. So Candyman is one of mine. I do like that one. I love that, and I always loved All Night Long from them. Let's see, Stokely. We love Stokely. First of all, Stokely, I think people sleep on Stokely's work, both solo and with Mint Condition. Lately, I've been playing Good for Your Heart. For some reason, I love that song. It's like that New Jack Swing song. But when Stokely dropped Level back in 2017, that was my favorite song for the year. I had that on repeat. And I loved his collab with Kelly Price as well. And then he just sounds really good live. When I was still doing seat filler work, Mint Condition one time had a set. And they tore that mess up. Tore it up. Let's see. Clarence. Okay, I'm gonna do this Clarence Carter comment, and then I'm gonna go to bed. Clarence Carter, yes, that's the be stroking. Story time. I think I told this story before, but actually, dang, I can't tell that story. Damn. I'll save it for later. All right. Crap. Either way, it has a funny outcome. It ties to something that we were working on, and we had to come up with an alternative. That's okay though. Belle Biv DeVoe, when will I see your smile again? My Belle Biv DeVoe slow jam was the Something in Your Eyes. To me, that's the one where they do really good vocally. That's a good one. And One More Day, even though I think that's just what's his name singing the whole thing by himself. Yeah. Okay, this has been really, really dope. I appreciate y'all hanging with me. I'm glad we can end on a positive and high note. Somebody said most fans love Libra. That must be about Tony, because yes, Libra is my second favorite Tony album behind the first one. If I could rank my top 3 Tony albums, it's Tony Braxton, Libra, and then Secrets and The Heat go back and forth. But yeah, and right now it's Secrets for me in third place. But yeah, so glad we can hang out on this live. I will keep you updated with things as they come along. Like I said, there's a new podcast episode that's coming out soon. There will be a podcast episode uploaded to this channel, but it's an older episode. So for those who want the newer ones, you're going to have to go to the streaming platforms to hear them. I think the streaming platforms are about 5 episodes ahead of where the YouTube channel is with the podcast, right? Anyway, this has been great. I'm out. Subscribe. Make sure you guys are hitting that bell on your subscription thing, and make sure the bell doesn't have the line through it. If the bell has a line through it, that's why you guys aren't seeing my notifications. So yeah, do all that. Stay safe, stay sane, mind your business so that you can age well, and we'll see you on the next live. Good night, folks.